Greetings, peoples of the interwebs. It's been a while since I last recorded a podcast on here. So welcome to the first episode of the Whenever podcast, where basically me and my guests talk about whatever, whenever, and again, we record, I'll edit and upload whenever, kind of hence the name of this. Pretty laid-back format where we will talk about literally anything, from like fantasy, sci-fi, to, I don't know, life, and anything in between. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce my first guest, Anna.
Well, thank you, Gimli. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, and also thank you for agreeing to be the first guest, which actually kind of happened kind of fortuitously, I guess.
Sort of. I just kind of volunteered.
Yeah.
I've never done a podcast before, and it sounded fun.
Yeah, so we'll see where this goes.
Sweet.
So I guess kind of like continuing a conversation we had previously in the week. We were talking about and I don't know if you listening to this are familiar with this anime called Assassination Classroom. Just finished it. Really good. So it's something that like it was kind of on my list of shows to watch for a while. I just never got around to it. But I finished it, and it was really good.
Who was your favorite character and why?
Well, oddly enough, like the show, the first 4, maybe 5 episodes, I wasn't hooked on it yet because I like the premise, and the premise was kind of enough to kind of keep me going. Just because basically it's exactly how it sounds. It is a classroom where you try to kill the teacher. There's a little bit more to it because basically like the teacher is like a genetically engineered creature of sorts.
Kind of like an alien.
Kind of like an alien, and basically. Again, like the premise is so weird, but I feel like only anime could pull this off and make it work. Because like if someone tried to turn this into like a live action movie or TV show, I'd just be like, this sounds dumb. This is ridiculous. I don't think it's gonna work. But somehow that seems to be the beauty of anime and manga is they're just kind of like, hey, this weird idea. Here you go. And you're like, okay.
You know, and what's funny too is that I find that like in cartoon form, like in anime form specifically, it's like really crazy, but you get so like invested in the show and the characters and everything, whereas when you watch the live action version sometimes of those animes, they are just so like bizarre, so much more so I think, and it's kind of almost hard to take it seriously, which is really interesting, I think.
But like, and I think that kind of goes to like why there hasn't been like a good anime adaptation in like a movie or live action form yet. Just because one, I think the ones that have tried, like Ghost in the Shell and some of the other movies that have tried to be adapted, I think one of the issues is a lot of them are too kind of like steeped in Japanese culture, and so I feel like it's harder. It's harder for like a movie to like appeal to like Western audiences, or at least I feel like. What I should have done is be like, okay, this is based off of anime, so obviously it's going to be very steeped in Japanese culture. But I feel like they try to westernize it too much to like kind of be like, okay, let's try to fit with like Western mentalities and stuff. And I feel like that kind of alienates the fans of the manga. It also alienates the fans of the original source material. And then it just kind of is this weird mess of like, I don't know what this movie's trying to be. But I think like. I don't know, like something like Assassination Classroom, I think would maybe work a little bit better as like well, I guess in theory it would work a little bit better. I guess if you just took the premise of it. No, again, like whether you could pull that off live action, I don't know. I feel like that'd be a tough sell if you're trying to like pitch that to like a movie studio.
Yeah, well, and because our culture is just so different.
It is.
A lot of people have a hard time, I think, like grasping anime and the storylines and all that stuff, but I think it's fun.
Yeah, and
because it has such rich imagination, which is what I feel like a lot of our like American films and stuff kind of lack.
Yeah, and that's something that again I think is a benefit of animation, whether it be like Japanese animation or even cartoons like here in the U.S. that like a lot of us grew up with as kids, or even like comic books. Comic books are like super, especially when you go into like the cosmic parts of like Marvel and DC. It gets really weird. But I think that's a benefit, though.
Well, and because you have, too, like with comic books, you have so many different writers constantly taking turns, which sometimes that's good, but for the most part, it just ends up being so chaotic, and, like, that's when you have so many characters dying, and then they're resurrected because that other person messed up, and then they're trying to, correct that mistake, and it just gets really crazy and sometimes really funny.
Or just a simple thing where a writer takes over, they're like, yeah, I want to write for Batman. Batman's dead. Not anymore, he's not if I'm writing. And it's like, well, okay, I guess find a creative way to bring Batman back to life, and then you can write for Batman. But yeah, I feel like, I guess kind of back to your original question, though, of like who I kind of latched onto. Because initially, like, I didn't really have a character that I kind of latched onto, because really they didn't start to develop like the characters until a little bit later. Mm-hmm. So like not that like any of the characters were like underdeveloped, but again, I think it was more the first few episodes. Obviously, for a premise like this, it has to kind of establish like, here's what it's about. Here's kind of like the ground rules of like how this classroom operates and stuff like that. And so I think if they had focused too much on the characters, then it would have detracted from like the premise of the story. Or so again, like initially I was like, I don't dislike these characters. I don't know like why any of them are in this classroom, aside from like E-class is just like kind of the bottom of the barrel students. And so I was like, I don't really know, like, and I've actually kind of worried that like it would focus more on the premise and less so on the characters. Because there are some shows or movies where like it's more of like, maybe not spectacle, but it's kind of more like, hey, focus on like this really cool premise. It's like, yeah, okay, cool, but they maybe focus too much on that and they don't focus enough on characters, and then you're kind of left with like these more bland characters that's like, they're not bad, there's nothing to them. But I do like that, because I feel like Nagisa, I think, was one of the only characters kind of from the get-go that had a little bit more character to him. I actually like that they kind of gave most of the characters like their like at least a moment throughout the series.
Yeah, and Nagisa, he's the one with the blue hair, right?
Yeah. Which I thought he was a chick at first. But
which is a common problem in anime.
Yeah. But I like that they even addressed that in one of the episodes.
Yeah.
They like went swimming, and he was just in like swimming trunks, and like some of the chicks in the show were like, "You're a dude," because he is just this kind of feminine-looking guy. And it doesn't help that like, cause I know a female voice actor voiced him, so it's like that also.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So that doesn't help either. But again, I guess since he is a bit more, I don't know, I guess feminine compared to some of the other male characters, that made sense. And like if the voice actor did have like a really deep masculine voice, it would be a little off-putting to where it's like, why does this little guy have like such a deep, like manly voice?
Well, and leave it to anime to address a problem like that. Like, I actually had this same kind of conversation with someone not too long ago. We were talking about that, about how like, you know, we get so caught up in I don't like, not necessarily social boundaries, just like rules. Like, just because, you know, you have a guy that isn't super aggressive and like, you know, wears t-shirts that say death on them, you know, it doesn't make them any less of, you know, of a man. And that's something I think our, you know, society really struggles with, because it's like, if you do have someone who's a bit more sensitive and gentle, well then there must be something wrong with him, or it must be female, or, you know, something like that. And that's not always true, you know.
But I think that's also something, or at least like, because really like a lot of the series that I watch regularly are like the kind of more slice of life series, just because those to me are kind of like, and I think we've talked about this before. Like one day at work, we got on like this whole long discussion on like different genres of anime, because there's literally a genre for everything, which is really cool. But like the kind of like slice of life type shows, or I guess like kind of my go-to, because it's kind of like the same thing as like when people watch The Office or Parks and Recreation, Scrubs, like over and over again, because one, they're just consistent, they're reliable. You know, you're gonna get like, no matter how many times you watch The Office, you're like, you love the characters, and you're just kind of like, it's comfort. It's basically like comfort food, I guess, is the best comparison. So I usually
visiting old friends.
Yeah, exactly. So those are the ones that I watch the most of, and because there's usually a lot more of those compared to like a sci-fi anime or, you know, fantasy.
Yeah.
Or at least on Funimation anyways. I'm sure that there's a plethora of like other fantasy, sci-fi, and, you know, mecha and all that stuff. But like I do feel like the kind of slice of life ones do focus a little bit more on like usually the protagonists, whether it be like male or female, is usually a bit more not that kind of, I guess, typical like, oh, like he's a guy, so he's got to be like all macho and stuff. But also I don't think that's really necessarily in the culture of of Japanese people either. They're usually very reserved, so they're not like all in your face like, oh, look at me, I'm like all macho, like I know like cars and sports ball and stuff.
Which is funny because they do add those kinds of characters in there, but it is so funny when they do. And I think that's why I love anime so much. It's like every character they come up with, it's like they're just so rich and they have such depth to them. And this is kind of a topic for controversy. I don't know if you've ever seen SAO.
I haven't.
Yeah. That was one of the biggest complaints, was that like a lot of the characters just seemed really, really dull.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought they had a great concept. It's just in some ways it might have been executed a little poorly.
Yeah.
But I thought they had a great setup, and a lot of the characters were really good, and it was definitely fun to watch. Mm-hmm. And it is very popular, so again, I kind of hesitate to mention this, but I think it's one of those, as a first anime, it's really good and it's really fun. Mm-hmm. But once you see so many others, it just kind of, I don't know, falls to the background.
Yeah. And that's, because I know of it, because that's basically like where people get sucked into like a video game, or, I don't know if it's a video game, but I guess like some kind of virtual world or
reality.
Something. Okay, yeah, virtual reality, and they have to like fight for their lives and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. They get stuck.
Yeah. Which, again, I think that's another thing that like maybe... Because to me that sounds like that'd be like another like Hunger Games, like one of those like young adult like movies, mm-hmm. Which if I saw a movie trailer for this, I'd probably be like, boring. No, that I don't want any of that. But I guess for whatever reason, like if I saw like, and again I haven't seen the show, but I guess like if I'd never heard of it and like heard the premise of like, okay, that sounds kind of cool, like a bunch of like young teenagers, or I don't know if they're all teenagers, maybe they're all adults, I don't know.
I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't remember. I know they like start out I think fairly young, but they're not underage, I don't think, but as the longer the series go on, they're definitely adults.
Oh, okay, so they actually like age as the...
Yes.
Okay, that's actually kind of cool.
And that's actually a problem that they address in the show. Mm-hmm. But, oh gosh, there's so much stuff. Like, so many jokes and things that I want to share with you, but I can't because it'll give stuff away. So you'll have to watch it, and we can talk about it.
Okay. Okay, now, yeah, because I kind of lost my train of thought. But
sorry.
No, that's fine. Like, but yeah, that's. I think it's something where something about anime usually like piques me more, and maybe it's just because I grew up watching so much anime as a kid, and kind of throughout my adult life too. It's like there's one called Bento where it's all about like fighting over discounted like bento boxes.
Yeah, you told me about that. That sounds so much fun.
And it's such a ridiculous concept to where, again, like if that like was a movie, I'd be like, what?
Yeah.
How do you base an entire movie, let alone a TV show, off people fighting over discounted bento boxes, or discounted like food at the grocery deli or something like that? And so like it was one of those things where I watched it out of curiosity because I'm like, how is this gonna work? Because again, that's basically like how someone explained it to me. They were like, yeah, basically they just fight over like bento boxes, and I was like, what else is there to it? And he's like, I mean, there's a little bit more to it, like, but that's kind of the broad strokes of what the show is about. They're just like, they go to different supermarkets, and it's like this kind of almost like a club, but like they have like certain rules and stuff like that. So it isn't just like an all-out brawl. Like they actually have like rules for like how they conduct the fights.
Yeah.
And also it's because like at the supermarkets, like basically the person who marks them discounts the food, they're kind of in on it, where they kind of like discount the prized food or whatever, I don't know, like a rack of ribs or something, and then they kind of like let the kids or adults basically just duke it out in the little deli section. They just kind of like sit back and watch, which again is kind of like, good luck pulling that off.
Just like Black Friday.
Yes, it is exactly like Black Friday, just with food. So actually, I guess it's not that weird of a premise, because if we're willing to fight and like stomp on each other and like push each other out of the way, or even kill each other over material goods like a TV or something, then yeah, food makes a little bit more sense, especially discounted food.
Yeah, people get very sensitive about, like you said, material things, but especially when it comes to food, I feel like it is 10,000 times worse. Which, don't get me wrong, I love food too. But
I am glad
Goodness.
that we're not at that point to where anytime I go to like the Kroger deli, I have to like continuously watch over my shoulders. That way, if I'm reaching for like a buffalo chicken sandwich, someone isn't gonna like deck me in the face and be like, "No, it's mine."
Which, I mean, to think about, it's absolutely hysterical. But you're right. It's like, who's gonna want to do that?
Yeah.
Who's
But
gonna,
I don't know.
who
Maybe,
wants to live that kind of life?
but maybe one day, that'll happen. I'm going for like a discounted like salad or something, and someone just like throws a shopping cart at me. Because again, people do that in the show. They like basically bag each other with like the little baskets to like blind them and stuff. They get really creative.
I'm gonna be honest with you though. I don't know of anyone who would throw a cart at you over a salad.
I hope not.
A cheeseburger or ice cream, maybe, but not salad.
No, then I'll avoid the salad bar then.
Possibly, well, maybe like vegans, like really aggressive vegans, maybe.
Vegans. Although I actually have had some vegan food. It's surprisingly really good.
It really is. Thank you.
So I initially scoffed at the idea of vegan food. It's like, bleh, it's like grass and dirt. And then I tried some. I was like, it's actually not bad.
No, it's not people. So many people knock it before they try it, and it's like, come on.
Yeah.
We're not 5 anymore. Give it a shot.
And also, I love food, so I'll try pretty much anything within reason. Like, if someone offered me, like, brains... I think it's more the consistency that I'd be worried about. Not the fact that, like, I'd be eating brains or, like, eyeballs, but I'm like, that just doesn't... The texture, I feel like, would not appeal to me, more so than the fact that, like... I think I could overcome the fact that, like, oh, I'm eating brains or eyeballs. It's just the texture, I feel like, would just be, like, jelly. And that doesn't sound that appealing to me.
Now, see, I really admire your guts and, I don't know, ability to look past those things because I can't. And I'm a very adventurous person, but when it comes to food, meat specifically, I am very concerned as to where it comes from and where, like, what they took it out of. Mm-hmm. It bothers me, genuinely. Like, thinking about eating brains, just like, ugh. And like, just, I don't know, like, milk creeps me out. I'm not gonna lie. I have never really enjoyed milk by itself. I could tolerate it in cereal. Yes, I like cheese, and I love me some ice cream, but it's like both of those things I feel like are very masked.
Yeah.
Whereas just straight milk just tastes gross to me. Oh my gosh. And then in science, when I was younger and I read where milk comes from and how they get it, that just mortified me because I thought, who looked at a cow and thought, let's drink that?
That's another thing that I always wonder for like early humans.
Yeah.
The whole process of elimination of like what's edible, what's tameable, what's domestic, like what can we domesticate? Then again, like even like so imagine they at some point they domesticated like horse, cattle, and all that stuff. But then at one point after they domesticated them, or maybe they domesticated him because they saw some strange liquid coming out of him. They're like, we need that in our lives. I don't know which came first, but even like that makes a little bit more sense. But like imagine the first, because imagine it had to have happened. It's a big world, but like someone, at least one person, had to go into like a saber-toothed tiger den and be like, okay, we've domesticated dogs, domesticated cattle, horses. I want that thing as a pet. Walks into a saber-toothed tiger den and is like, come here, little guy, and then just gets mauled to death. And then they're like, okay, let's check saber-toothed tiger off the list of things we can tame. Or maybe they tried it multiple times because they're like, okay, maybe his approach was wrong. Maybe we like lay out some food first, and then we tackle the thing and like beat it into submission, which then they probably got mauled to death again. It's like, I'm starting to have my doubts that this creature is tameable. Woolly mammoth. Okay, let's try that. And then I imagine that didn't go too well either. And again, maybe that's just the weird things that my brain like goes to when I am, whether it's like just it randomly pops in my head or I'm just like looking up things because I like history. So I'm kind of like, oh, when did humans first domesticate like animals or something?
Looking up random facts and just researching random things, especially animals, I think is just so much fun and fascinating, and it is a great way to kill the time.
Yeah.
And to, going back to what you were saying about domesticating animals, it makes you wonder, like, because it baffles me the animals that people do try to domesticate. But then it's really intriguing for me personally as well to see the ones that they don't try to keep as pets.
Yeah.
Exhibit A, flamingos. I have never heard anyone try to make a pet out of a flamingo. I just think that would be so interesting.
But I wonder, because like some birds, I just feel like would be kind of obnoxious as pets. Like I feel like they'd be cool in small doses, especially like parrots. I think parakeets or parrots like they mimic what you say. So like that'd be kind of cool at first, but then after a while, like say like you stub your toe and you just start like dropping F-bombs, and then like the bird is just like mocking you, and you're just kind of like that's kind of funny, but then like you're having tea with like your relatives, and then like the bird is just like squawking F-bombs. You're like, shut up, stop it. So I feel like birds would be more obnoxious, and they don't seem to have. They don't. And again, like with my limited experience with birds, whether it be like at a zoo or just observing birds like outside, they seem to have like less grasp on things compared to like a cat or a dog, where they seem to at least understand basic stuff. Like usually, if you're sad, like more so dogs. Cats are kind of like loser, you're sad. But dogs will at least kind of like snuggle up to you and be like, I don't know what's bothering you, but just pet me. It'll make you feel better, probably. And if not, it'll make me feel better.
Well, and I think as a general rule, I totally get where you're coming from, but at the same time, it really just does depend on the animal's personality. Because, like, I had a cat a couple years ago. She died, unfortunately. But she was, like, my best friend. She was actually a Siamese. She was super, super tiny and petite. She actually had a lot of health issues, bless her heart, and allergies, which was really, like, really, really cute and sad at the same time. But she was so, like, friendly and docile, and, like, there was one time I was upstairs and I was having a really hard time, and I think I was, like, actually crying. She jumped up on my chair, I kid you not, looked at me, put her head against mine, and then, like, licked my tear away.
Wow.
So... And that's not only a cat, but like a purebred Siamese, which, there's a common myth that Siamese are supposed to be like super mean and aggressive and those kinds of things, which, like, I guess some are, but that's not true for all of them. Yeah. All I'm saying is, though, I do think it really depends just on the animal, because I've met some dogs that are like really, really antisocial and just don't like people, and they're very,
Okay,
introverted.
so I guess if you did domesticate or tame a flamingo, what would you do with a flamingo aside from just like having it like strut around like your yard, which would look kind of cool because again they have just those really long legs and they look like they'd be really awkward out in the wild, but somehow like the same thing with giraffes. Like you'd think since giraffes are so tall they'd just be like super like trip all the time and like be super awkward. So like. And I don't know, maybe that was something that crossed people's minds when they're like, flamingos, let's try that one. And then maybe they're like, they just stand there, they eat fish and stuff.
No, I know exactly. It's like they have wings, but they don't really fly. So it's like, why are they here?
Like, I think they can fly, but I don't think they fly like long distances or anything like that.
No, it's like they don't really, use them. Well, and just one more thing, too, about birds. I would feel so bad about keeping a bird because they do have wings, and it's not like a cat or a dog where you can train them to do things, and they have like couches and things that they can curl up on, and kind of have a bit of freedom. Whereas like birds you just keep locked in a cage.
Yeah, I would not want a bird flying around my house, pooping all over the place, and like feathers like littering my house.
Yeah, and I totally get that, but at the same time it's like birds were meant to fly and be free and like do those things. So it's like I feel like those are one species of animal that I feel like people shouldn't use as pets because it's mean. Yeah.
Although I have like heard of like I think it was like maybe National Geographic or maybe Animal Planet of weird, I guess like not necessarily pets, but like humans form like weird bonds with like animals. And I think like this one dude in I think it might have been India. Apparently like at some point like saved like a crocodile. I don't know how he saved it, but then like the crocodile like swam like followed him home, and so now like the dude just can hop in the water with this crocodile and like play with him in the water. And I'm like, what? That's really cool, but at the same time like. I'm gonna be honest. If I was in the forest and a bear walked up to me like non-threatening and just kind of sat there with me, I'd be like, okay, you're my new best friend. But at the back of my head, I'm like, this thing can kill me easy. Like, one hit with its paw, which is probably bigger than my face, it's like, I'm done.
Yeah, that's like Steve stuff right there.
Yeah.
Only he could do stuff like that.
Yeah, only, like, and again, only Steve Irwin could just, like, hop in, like, a river with, like, crocodile-infested, and just kind of be like, oh, the beautiful, mate, yeah, let me give you a big kiss.
She knows I love her. She knows I'm not going to hurt her.
Beautiful.
Sorry, those are terrible impressions.
Or great.
Well, yours were pretty good.
Oh, thank you. But yeah, and then again, the fact that that guy like was able to just become, well, maybe not become friends, because there were some times where like he'd be taunting like a king cobra. I'm like, okay, that's pushing it, man. Like, it's bad enough that you're jumping in the water with like sharks and crocodiles, but like that is a cobra that will kill you in an instant. And he's like, oh, I'm gonna pet it. It's so beautiful. It's like, stop it! You're giving me anxiety right now. Because I feel like any minute, like you're gonna die on TV.
It should like. I wish I had that kind of lack of fear, which I'm accused of that all the time, but I don't feel like I do. But I think you just get, like, those people, we just get so distracted by, like, I don't know, you get this mindset eventually that you think you could be friends with anything. And so you don't think about it, you just go for it.
Yeah, and I get that, but I feel like there's also a...
Common sense.
Like
there are radars that go off in your head. Surprisingly not.
Yeah, like the woman who jumped into like a jaguar cage, like at a zoo to take a selfie. It's like, well, okay.
That's stupid.
I have no sympathy for you. Like,
no.
That's just dumb.
Yeah, no, that is. I did read about like a more optimistic note, I guess. I don't know. This kid fell into a gorilla enclosure. Mm-hmm. And there was actually, like, a female gorilla that came and, like, picked him up and, like, held him and, like, protected him from the rest of, like, the gorillas. And then until it could find, like, a pathway, and it actually took him to an exit where it gave it back to the people. Which is just so, like, what?
Which is really cool.
so cool.
But I'd still feel incredibly worried.
No, exactly. And I'm not saying, like... that should just give you a reason to I'm just gonna go jump in head first into a gorilla enclosure and just see what happens. Like that's really dumb.
Yeah, especially because apparently like primates have their own like rules where like you don't bare your teeth because I think that's like a threat. So like even if you're just maybe you're laughing, maybe a gorilla's like that son of a bitch and just starts charging at you and they can like rip you in half, no problem. So that would be my concern with even something like a highly intelligent creature like a gorilla or something where it's like, oh cool, we're speaking sign language together. This is really neat. But like maybe I do something that sets it off, bam, it punches me in the face, I'm done. Like, they would not take any effort at all. Or maybe it just, like, picks me up, throws me, like, 10 feet away, and I'm still dead.
Well, so your biggest fear is spiders, right?
Yeah, I don't like spiders.
What would be, like, your second favorite? I mean, not favorite, fear. Favorite fears.
Like, animals or just in general?
Just in general, I guess.
Because when I was younger, I used to not be a big fan of heights. I'm better with heights now. Like, especially, like, if I'm on top of, like, a tall building or something like that, as long as there's, like, rails or something to, like, prevent me from, like, falling off. But even, like, a few years ago, when me and my siblings were taking a vacationing in Europe, we went to Norway and climbed on top of a mountain. Really beautiful mountain, like, it's called Preikestolen, and basically it's just like this huge slab, like almost not entirely flat, but like flat enough to where you can like just sit up there comfortably, have a picnic or whatever, on top of this mountain. Great view, but like if you, we went up there twice because the first day was super windy, so I didn't even want to get close to the edge because the wind would literally blow me off. At least if I lost my balance. So I was like, no thanks. The following day, when we climbed back up there, like, I sat, like, right there on the edge, and I was fine, because it was just, like, this great experience, like, sitting on top of a mountain, and again, just beautiful scenery. I feel like that's where, like, like, there are times where, like, we'd be hiking through the mountain, and I'm like, if a dragon just came out of, like, this, like, fjord, I wouldn't be surprised. You're like, okay, that makes sense. Or, like, if orcs and goblins started climbing out from, like, these crevices from the mountain, I'd be like, all right, this makes sense. This looks like this would be in Lord of the Rings. So heights don't bother me so much now. I don't really know if I have
because you feel like possibly like when you're really high somewhere that it will take you away from reality?
No, I think it's just that, like, maybe, like, as I've gotten older, I've just become more adventurous. So, like, because I actually love, like, hiking and stuff like that. So, like, if someone was like, you want to climb, like, this really tall mountain? Yes! Now, maybe, like, Mount Everest might be a little too out of my range, because I also don't like the fact that I'd be, like, freezing. Like, yeah, it'd be cool to climb to the top and say I did it, but that just doesn't sound like the best experience to climb all the way up and, like, be freezing and all this stuff.
Yeah, get hypothermia, those types of things.
Yeah, hypothermia, like avalanches.
Yeah.
But like, you know, I think that's, you know, from when I was just kind of gotten more adventurous through traveling, again, something like heights doesn't bother me, and I would love to climb, like, you know, hike more mountains and stuff like that. Maybe, like, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a fear, but it's just something that I don't always feel comfortable with is, like, the ocean in particular, just because it's so big, and I'm not a very strong swimmer.
I get that.
And, like, take it out of the equation that I'm a very pasty, pale Irish ginger. So, like, I burn super easy on a beach, so I'm not a beach person. But the few times I have been to the beach, and it wasn't, like, ridiculously hot, and, like, the sun wasn't viciously attacking my pale skin.
Yeah. Do you have to use, like, 100, I think it's, like...
SPF?
Yes. I do, too.
And it still doesn't work. Like, I still get sunburn. Like, not as bad, but yeah, I have to basically lather myself in, like, a full bodysuit of, like, SPF, like, 100. Otherwise...
I do the same thing. Anything, like, under that, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't help.
I'm a crisp.
Yeah.
And I keep having to reapply it, too.
Yeah, no, because, again, like, most people could probably just one layer of, like, SPF, like, 25 or something. They're good. No, I need to, like, consistently apply sunblock.
And then there are those people, too, that's like, you know, I just want to lay out in the sun and tan. And it's like,
Even if I could tan, that sounds boring.
It does. Like, I respect people that have that kind of patience because I do not. I just, I would die.
Like, even if I had, like, my iPod to listen to music or a book to read, I can only do that for so long before, like, ADD kicks in and I'm like, okay, I gotta, like, move. I can't just, like, sit here in the hot, baking sun.
Yes.
So I'm not I'm very awkward on the beach because, again, I'm not a strong swimmer, so, like, I'll get in the water and kind of be like, yeah, okay, this is kind of nice. I don't know what I do now. Because I'm definitely not gonna, like, surfboard. That's ridiculous. Like, as cool as it looks, no.
Well, I mean, but that's why you go with families, is that way you can, like, you know, throw water on them and push them in.
I haven't done that, actually. But also, like, the most recent time, like, me and my family went on, like, a family vacation to the beach, we were all, like, adults, so... Maybe, like, when we were kids, we probably would have done that, but, like, as adults...
I'm an adult, and I'd still do that.
But, yeah, like, I'm not a big... Because I went scuba diving... Like, me, my brother, and my sister, we were in Hawaii, I think it was 2016? Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, let's try scuba diving. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm adventurous. I'll give it a go. Didn't like it one bit. And I think a lot of that is just because, one, I'm not a strong swimmer, and I don't swim very often.
Yeah.
And so I think, like, as soon as I got, like, all the gear on and jumped in the water, it was kind of cool, because I'm like, I'm in the ocean. But then, like, I think my body was like, you're not a fish, you're not a fish, you're not a fish. And so, like... I was starting to, like, breathe really heavy. I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I can swim, like, because I don't know how far deep we were, like, swimming down to, but I was, like, I barely got very far at all, and I was kind of like, okay, I'm breathing kind of heavy. I don't want to have a panic attack, and then just, like, start, like, flailing around in the water. So I was like, I'm just going to go up to the boat. And maybe if I swam more often and, like, was a more stronger swimmer, I probably would have been better, but, like, I'm not as adventurous with water-related stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I've been kayaking before, which was fun, but I was still always worried that, like, if this canoe tips over, I'm probably not going to have the sense to, like, be calm and just be like, oh, okay, I can float, because, like, I've got a life vest on, and even if I didn't, like, humans have enough buoyancy to float, I'd be panicking, just be like, ah! And just, again, be flailing my arms, you know, and I'd probably drown. So, like... I'm totally fine with, like, land-based adventuring stuff, like hiking and all that stuff, but, again, if someone's like, you want to go surfboarding? No! That's an awful idea.
Well, and I mean, it's very understandable, too, because there are so many things, like, in the ocean that are just so dangerous.
Sharks. One of the world's oldest creatures that's barely had to evolve because it's so efficient at killing.
I can't stand sharks. They, like, freak me out so bad.
And that fear makes more sense opposed to spiders.
No, not really. I mean, to be fair, like spiders, they're small, so they can sneak in anywhere. A
lot of eyes and legs.
Exactly.
Why do they need those?
So they have great sight, I guess, and their senses are just like amazing, and it's also really annoying because they spin webs literally everywhere.
Yeah.
I can attest to this because I live in an attic, so it's very, very
It's like
annoying.
Spider Central there.
Yes. But too, there are so many different varieties of spiders, and a lot of them, so many of them are so poisonous. Like, all they have to do is bite you one time, and
I don't know which spiders are
Exactly.
poisonous or not, so if I see one, I'm like, I stomp it. I have no mercy. But again, like, sharks makes total sense, because, like, if you're swimming in the ocean or doing any kind of activity in the ocean, and you see a shark, you're like, well, I'm in its element. And this thing is, again, it's barely had to evolve, so if it wants me, there is nothing I can do.
Well, and so many times, too, like, people try to, defend sharks and whatever because,
Which is totally fair. Like, but, like, I'm not saying, like, oh, let's, like, go punch sharks or, like, go hunt sharks down. I'm just saying that, like, again, if you're in the ocean and you see a shark...
You're in their habitat,
my
friend,
your likelihood of, like, surviving or, like, not getting attacked, I imagine, are slim.
Yeah. Well, because it's not even that they're attacking you, it's just that the way that they figure out what you are is to bite you.
Yeah, because they don't have hands.
Yeah, if you were a chihuahua, but they're not. They're really massive, and one bite equals half your body.
And even the smaller sharks have, like, razor sharp teeth to where, like, one bite, like, practically you've got a huge gash in your arm or leg wherever they bite you.
And they look so creepy, too, because they look like clowns, and clowns are creepy.
What?
They do! It's the smile. You've really never thought about this before.
No.
Yeah. It's the smile. They have such creepy, dead smiles, and their eyes, it's like, what is that?
Well, I'll give you the soulless eyes, because, again, they have no eyelids, so obviously they just have the soulless expression in their face, or their eyes.
Yeah. And then this creepy little smile with all these teeth, and it does. You close your eyes, think of a clown, all those teeth, yes, there are similarities.
Okay, so what'd be scarier then? A shark or a clown in the ocean that can swim, I guess, like, maybe not as fast as a shark, but, like, comparable enough to where, like, if you start swimming away, that thing's probably going to catch you.
I definitely think the clown would be far scarier, but that's just me.
Okay, that's
like,
fair.
I really don't like clowns.
Who does?
You would be surprised. I tell people, I'm like, I don't like clowns. They're evil. All clowns are evil. And they're like, what experience did you have? Clowns are fine. What's your problem? Like, they're evil.
Okay, next question.
Has anyone had a good experience with a clown, yet they defend them? I don't know.
What's better, clowns or mimes?
Better, like
I guess, like, if you,
better, but...
or I guess, like, which would you, like, if you were stuck in a room, would you? Actually, that's probably not the best example because a mime, they don't say anything, so maybe a little less obnoxious. But, like, because at the same time, mimes, though, I feel like they're maybe not as, like, overtly creepy as clowns, because clowns are just very bright and colorful, and they're, like, very in your face with their balloon animals, their squeaky noses.
Yeah, I guess that's it. They're obnoxious. What really did it for me with clowns, I guess, is that one Ben 10 episode when I was younger, I watched it, and it was that creepy clown that steals people's happiness, but the way he does it, he, like, sucks their soul.
Oh.
So they just, like, become old, and then he has, like, these rows of teeth. It's just so creepy. It's horrible.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. And then I started noticing that all clowns were like that. They all have the same face. It's ugh.
But mimes can create walls. So they could, like, wall you in and trap you, and then it's...
But they also, it's like... I think mimes are just creepy because they're so silent, and I feel like they know everything.
The silent killers.
Exactly. They know all your secrets because everyone ignores them, so...
But with their wall-building prowess, let's just have mimes build the wall across the U.S.-Mexico border. It'll be cheaper, and no one will see it. Like, people just, like, there you go, problem solved. Still a dumb idea to build a wall. But But that'd be my proposal if I was like some kind of senator. I'm like, here's how we do it, mimes, and just army of mimes just walling.
I understand where you're coming from there. I just got off 5 hours of, working registers in retail. I'm not going to discuss politics with you right now.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I think as far as saving money, yes, I think that's a great idea. We should explore that.
Yeah, why isn't that the option on the table? But okay, I don't even know how we got on the topic of like mimes and clowns.
I'm sorry, that was my fault.
Oh, okay, no. Somehow sharks led into
Yes.
mime. Okay, which again, being afraid of sharks makes more sense. But also to be fair, like when people are kind of like, "Oh, you're afraid of spiders," like, well, one, it's called an irrational fear. So I'm aware that yes, it's kind of dumb to be like, and it's not necessarily like afraid in the sense of like, if as soon as I see a spider, I'm just kind of like helpless and I'm just going like and, flee.
Well, that's good because my brother's pretty helpless when he sees spiders. Actually, all of them are. I was in the house one time and I hear Anna, and so I come out in the living room. Now, okay, mind you, one of them's younger than me, and the one that called me is the oldest, and he's in his 30s now. They call me out into the living room. I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, there's a spider over there. I'm like, okay. And he says, can you kill it, please? I'm like, are you kidding me?
So they like those old cartoons where like if a mouse, they're like up on the furniture like
yes!
clinging to the walls. It's like
It's so funny, and too, he's always like trying to be all macho and big and bad, and I'm just it's funny.
That is kind of a funny image.
I did kill it for them though because I mean I would just feel bad saying no.
But I would counter that when again people like to chastise me for again irrational fear. It's like, yes, I'm aware that like spiders pose relatively no harm, but the same thing could be said like if you're going for a stroll through the forest and the park ranger's like, oh, by the way, there are bears in the forest, but don't worry, they'll pose you relatively no harm. Noted. But if I see a bear in the woods, I'm not going to be like, silly bear, you pose relatively no harm. I'm going to be like, oh. I'm going to walk away slowly and hope that thing did not see me and tracks me down. Same thing with spiders. Because again, if I like want a snack, open up the pantry, there's a spider dangling down there, I'm not going to be like, silly spider, I'm going to get on my face. And probably swat the thing down and try and kill it. Because it has no business invading my, the pantry with the snacks. So, yeah.
I mean, and I completely, I do feel like arachnophobia, it is a rational fear, I think, for the most part. I'm gonna be honest with you, though. I've never really freaked out, when I've seen a spider. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's just because I've gotten so used to living with them.
That's fair.
Having to kill them and things like that. So it's like I don't know. Maybe I'm dead inside when it comes to insects. I don't know. But the only time I think I ever remember like really freaking out to the point where I was just like chasing it all around my room trying to kill it was a wasp. Mm-hmm. There was a wasp in there.
Are you allergic to wasps or bees or anything like that, or
I
just
don't
not?
know.
You just don't like them.
I don't mind bees, and I don't know if I'm allergic to either one of them or not. But I mean, I guess what freaked me out is because I looked outside my window and like right in the corner there was like this huge wasp nest, like in my window, like inside.
Oh.
It was freaky, and my walls have like near the window, like the window frame, it had holes in it because it's a really old house and we need to move, but can't do that right now. Anyway, so that's how one of them got in, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, I already have to live with spiders. Ants is probably going to be an issue when summer comes along. I'm going to have to kill those. I do not want to deal with wasps.
That's fair.
So I was like chasing this thing around my room trying to kill it, and it finally landed like behind my curtains. Mm-hmm. And so I went to like hit it. Well, my curtains fell down. And so it's like just on this window, and so I don't know, I just like I freaked out, and so I punched it like really hard.
The natural thing, not to grab a shoe or like, any other blunt objects, just like kung fu punch it.
I don't know. Funny enough, it sort of worked because, and this is, I mean, I'm going to warn you, it's kind of gross. Like half of its body kind of fell off, but it was still attached, so it's crawling up my window, almost, like limbs hanging off. It was absolutely disgusting, and then I felt bad for it because I'm like, I just did that to you. I'm sorry. So I grabbed the curtain rod. I don't know why, it was just there, and it fell off and it fell on the floor. So I just beat it to death with the curtain rod. I'm sure there were a lot more or less brutal ways to kill a wasp.
But I don't know.
Again, it just happened. I'm not proud of it.
Punching things you fear, that's usually a good...
Yeah, well, I grew up with 3 brothers, and so those things, you either... I find that girls, when they grow up with all brothers, they either just, like, absolutely embrace that, and they become super, super tomboyish, or they completely reject those teachings and become, like, super girly, and they just, pretend that their brothers don't exist. And I don't know why, but I just fall somewhere, like, in the middle. But definitely when it comes to fears, you can tell that I grew up with 3 boys because that is my reaction. Like, I don't even know why. I don't like, when I get scared, I don't scream. I genuinely don't. You can ask anyone, and I don't know why. Like not even, like, internally we're, like, kind of, like, I mean, yeah, well, like, the most people get out of me is that much. It's like, nah. And that's it. Like, they have tried, and there have been times where I've genuinely been scared. Like, I was on a roller coaster. Those things scare me to death. They are so much fun, but oh my gosh.
I'm not the biggest fan of roller coasters, because, like, initially it was the whole height thing. Because, like, roller coasters go up super high, so I'd kind of be like, I don't like this one bit. But then, it's over in no time. I just don't like the fact that, like, these roller coasters where they're a really big deal, it's like, oh, you gotta ride this roller coaster. They're fun for, like, 2 seconds, and then it's, like, that 4-hour wait for what is usually, like, 2 minutes of actual, like, riding the roller coaster. So it's like, yeah, I enjoyed it, but was it worth waiting in line for, like, 2 hours or more? No. I like the, like, spinny around things.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't remember the name either, but yeah.
But I seem to be, like, in the minority of people who prefer those things, because, sure, do they do the same thing over and over again? Yeah, you just hop in, they spin around a lot. I'm okay with that. Because usually the lines aren't that long, so I can just, as soon as I get off, I'm like, I can go for another one. Hop right back in line, and I'm back on in, like, 2 to 5 minutes. Instead of, like, a roller coaster where you're like, oh, so much fun, let's get back in line. 2 hours later, you're still sitting in line.
Yeah, I think, too, amusement parks and those kinds of things, I'm very picky about them because it really depends on, like, who you're with. If you're with really fun people that you feel very comfortable with, then it can be so much fun. But unfortunately, like, those things, they're supposed to be fun and you're supposed to do those things with really fun people, but you never do. You always end up getting stuck with family members or, like, friends of friends, or, it's never what it should be, and so it never really, I think, ends up being super fun.
Yeah, or you're stuck with the people where, like, they basically, like, push you. It's kind of like, well, you're with us, gotta ride that roller coaster. It's like, yeah, maybe shouldn't have chose you guys to pal around with. Which, again, to be fair, like, they were very, like, while they would also, like, bust my balls about, like, not liking roller coasters, they were also very, like, calm about kind of like, okay, like, just ride this roller coaster. If you don't like it, that's fine. We won't ride, or you won't have to ride it anymore. Like, we'll still ride roller coasters. But they were at least like, it's fine. Just, it's fine once you get over it. So that in the midst of, like, making fun of me and stuff like that, they were at least still trying to comfort me with, like, the roller coasters. So, like, it wasn't all that terrible, but it's like, again, they mostly just wanted to, like, ride roller coasters. And I'm like, yeah, they're fine. They're totally fine, but they're not my go-to thing if I go to an amusement park.
I mean, I like roller coasters, just the adrenaline rush. That feeling of, I'm crazy. So, like, that feeling of, oh my gosh, I'm gonna die. Oh wait, I lived. This is so much fun.
Time to punch another wasp.
Exactly. It's like those things, it's like that feeling is so much, like, it's so much fun and it just feels awesome. But at the same time, I don't like roller coasters, I think, just in general, because I hate the turbulence. The turbulence is the worst. Like when you hit your head from like side to side, and they're like, but they have, there are some roller coasters where they have cushion and stuff. It's like, yeah, that's not gonna kill the headache that you're gonna have afterwards, And for those of us that have, fairly like delicate necks, that's we're not gonna be able to hold our heads, like super steady the whole ride. Like it's difficult. And a lot of them aren't smooth either. They're like really rickety, and they're just like, it's super bumpy. So, I mean, I think those are the main reasons why I don't enjoy roller coasters all that much. Yeah. But it can be fun. And again, the feeling like after you get off of one is just, it's really fun and exhilarating, I guess. That
is, and again, like I totally get like why people like roller coasters, because a lot of it is just the adrenaline rush, where like once you're like at the very top and then you go through the whole loop-de-loop and spins and all the whatever crazy stuff roller coasters have nowadays, you do feel like it's super, like, because again your heart rate is jacked and you're just kind of like, oh my god, I gotta do something, like I want to run a marathon, or like I want to do that all over again.
Well, and see, for us nerds, like, we see, all these cool, like, Star Wars, and you see the battles that they have are these, like, super awesome, action films, like John Wick, and, you see all of these people doing such incredible, awesome things, and you know that when they get stuck in those situations, they have that same adrenaline rush. But because we're civilians, and we live in, unfortunately, this horrible thing sometimes that's called reality. Yeah. And so we don't get to do things like that. And so I guess that's why maybe some people, attach themselves to things like roller coasters and whatever, because it's like you get that same feeling and you feel like you're, in a sense, kind of experiencing something similar. Which is, that's as close as we can get.
Yeah, and I think that's one reason why I usually gravitate towards like kind of outdoorsy stuff, because what I like to do, especially like when I go for walks in the park or something, is just pop my headphones on, listen to like it's usually either like the Lord of the Rings soundtrack, because it's just great. Howard Shore is an incredible composer, or just like heavy metal. Like, usually gravitate more towards like the folk metal stuff, just because again I love. That's kind of my niche. I love like folk metal where it tells like a story, and also just I love the riffs and all that stuff. So usually between those two, and I like that again I can take a stroll through like the woods and listen to something like Elvati, where they're a Celtic folk metal band, and I just get transported to like this Celtic battlefield, and I'm just like, yes, this is my jam, because it kind of again, and I guess in the same way, like it takes me away from like reality in a sense, to where I can just kind of let my imagination, because it actually does help me with like writing. That's usually why I like to go walking a lot too, is if I like get writer's block or something, I like to just pop my headphones in, go for a walk through the woods or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then that usually kind of helps stimulate like ideas and stuff like that. So I think that is another reason why, again, like a lot of people like to do skydiving, which that's another thing where I don't know if I could get behind skydiving. Again, I like to think I'm an adventurous person, but skydiving does not sound that appealing to me.
I think I can make it to the door, and then I would have to look back and get someone to push me.
Yeah, that's the only way I'm jumping out of that plane, because it's like, unless this plane's on fire and we're about to crash, why jump out of a perfectly good plane?
Well, it does sound fun, though. Like, I totally get that appeal.
But my concern, though, is, because I know that, like, they always have, like, or I'm assuming they usually have a guide with you to kind of like, okay, here's where you, like, pull the thing.
Yeah.
My worry is that, like, I would miss, like, the signal or the right time to, like, pull the parachute, and I just, like, splat. Which, I guess, it'd probably be quick, so I guess it wouldn't be the worst death. But it's still the fact that I'm kind of, like, I don't know, like, that would just, like, scare the crap out of me as I'm falling. It's like, oh, this is fun, but oh, it's also scary. So I feel like it'd just be, like, this back and forth of, like, oh, I'm really excited, this is fun. I might also die. So I think that's another reason why, like, skydiving to me doesn't sound that appealing, because I just feel so conflicted the whole time. Because, again, yes, the adrenaline would be going, it'd be a rush, but then it's like, every time I feel like that moment of excitement, that's when, like, my neurotic brain catches and it's like, oh, you might as well die. It's like, this is no longer fun. Now I'm just going to panic in the sky.
I think, honestly, my biggest, like, concern would be that much wind in my face.
That too.
But that, honestly, that would be my biggest thing. I don't know what that says, but...
Or, like, you land in, like, a tree or something. Like, your parachute gets caught in a tree. So it's like, yeah, you'd probably be fine. You might get, like, a few, like, little bruises or something. But then you're stuck in a tree. And I don't know if, like, you have, like, your cell phone with you. Because then you have to hope that someone saw you land in a tree. And then you're just stuck there. It's like, well, I'm hungry. I gotta use the bathroom. And I'm stuck in a tree. So, like, that would also... I would not be a fan of that either.
Well... And that's probably a really bad situation for me because I get bored super easily, and I love climbing. So I'd probably just try to like climb out of it and try to climb down the tree, and then I'd probably end up falling off and breaking my leg.
Yeah. So again, more reason why like somebody would really have to push me into skydiving. And that actually was another thing that like my siblings thought about doing when we were in Hawaii, is because they offered like skydiving trips. And so they're like, oh, let's go skydiving. I was like, maybe. I don't know. I don't know if I'm on board with this. Then I think they settled for scuba diving. I'm like, I think I can handle that more. Turns out I couldn't. But still. So yeah, like I don't know what it would take to get me to skydive, but it would probably take a lot of persuasion. Mm-hmm. You'd probably have to force my hand, like actually like, okay, I'm taking your hand, swiping that credit card, and I'm going to physically like pick you up and carry you to the plane. And then I'm going to push you out of the plane.
Yeah, that sounds... That's excessive.
It is, but again, that's usually where... That's kind of where I'm in mentally drawing the line of, like, my adventurous stuff is, like, scuba diving. I don't know if I'd maybe be willing to give that another go, but, like, skydiving, I think I'd draw the line. I like to be on the land where, like, I'm meant to be. I'm not a fish. I'm not a bird. I like to be on land, hike through mountains or hills and trees. Like, nature is where, like, I'm at my most comfortable, instead of worrying, like, am I going to have a panic attack while I'm, like, swimming in the ocean and get eaten by a shark? It's like, or I'm going to fall my death while skydiving, so yeah. But again, to each their own, the people who like to scuba dive and skydive and all that stuff. Good for you.
I don't know, like you were going to say scooter dive, and which I have done that before.
That's a thing?
No.
I was going to say, like, do you just drive a scooter into the water?
No,
or, like, is it like a water scooter?
No, it's like when you're on a scooter and you trip over a rock and you take a head dive.
Oh, okay.
Into the concrete.
Okay, yeah.
Or grass.
Hopefully grass.
Yeah, well, my grandmother actually did that. I think that's probably why I'm so crazy. She was, like, I think, in her 60s when this happened, but we had, like, this super steep hill, and so she was, like, one day just decided, you know what, I want to ride one of your scooters.
Now, is this, like, an electrical scooter, or just, like, a regular...
just, like, an old-fashioned scooter, the ones we had back in the day, you know? And so she gets on it, she gets about halfway down the hill, and I kid you not, she, like, flips completely over head first, and she just falls into the grass. And my brother Ben, my oldest one, he looks at me, and we just panicked. And so we go running down the hill, and we thought for sure she had like broken every bone in her body.
Yeah.
We were like, just like so frightened. And we get over there, and she rolls over, and she's laughing so hard. She's like laughing so hard she's crying. And
good old grandma for taking a hit and laughing about it.
This is the family I come from. So now you understand why I punch wasps.
Yeah, this is beginning to make sense now.
I mean, and it's so funny because like none of us are really, I feel like, all that intimidating. You know, we didn't grow up in a home where everyone was super aggressive or anything like that. It's just for some reason we were taught when you feel pain, you just walk it off. It's fine. Or like do really dangerous things and it'll be fine. And if you die, it'll be a really funny story to tell. You know, you can say you lived a full life.
I like that positive spin to death. It's like, hey, whenever you die, it's a great story for the funeral.
Which is really funny because I think for the most part, I think aside from like a handful of us, like a lot of people in my family are very pessimistic. I don't know. It's really crazy. It's what happens, you know. You have Irish, Scottish, German background. It just all meshes together after a while and creates a really unique combination of people. I think that's why I love gypsies.
Interesting. Okay.
I do. I have such a love for gypsies, and it makes me sad that they're not really around anymore. because they have such a free spirit about them, and they're so eclectic.
Yeah.
And they all have such like a closeness, in their like communities and things. And then of course, the caravans are always fun, and like they're just their style and the way that they live life, just from place to place, and that kind of thing is just, it's fun.
Also, fun fact, originally people thought gypsies came from Egypt, hence the name gypsies. I think it was actually used as a derogatory term because they came from Egypt, so it was like a slang like, oh, those gypsies. Actually, they come from India originally.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So
that's really cool.
Yeah, just a fun little fact. Facts that will probably never come in handy at any point in my life, other than just in random conversations like this, where I'm like, fun fact about the gypsies.
Did you know?
It's like, cool. And then,
I mean, I'm the same way. I know a ton of facts about fruit from playing Fruit Ninja, and I know a lot of facts about animals just from getting super, super bored and looking them up or finding them on Pinterest.
Yeah, that is. Cause I remember like when I was a kid, like in elementary school, we always had to read like a certain amount of like books, and they had to be like a book because like all of them were like labeled with like a little sticker, like a colored sticker to represent like our reading level.
Yeah.
So like if you were in third grade, you'd have like say a red sticker where it's like, okay, that's what you can read, or if you were like, or unless you had like a higher reading level. So I was usually like I think I could read up to like a fourth grade level when I was in third grade. But most of the time I just stuck with like these animal books. We had to reach a certain amount, and I'm like, these are quick and easy. So I just read a crap ton of those, and for whatever reason, I read a hippo book, and a lot of that information retained, and I don't know why. So
but
like,
do you really like hippos?
They're fine, I guess, but like, and maybe it's just because like when I was I kind of read the book just because to just get my reading credits out of the way. But I just distinctly remember like reading the book and like this little factoid thing that's kind of like, oh, a lot of people like don't think a whole lot about hippos because they're kind of big and chunky, and they don't think they're that threatening. But it's like actually they're Africa's most dangerous animal. Like it's the most dangerous animal in Africa. So I was like, what? And then it went into why, because apparently it's very territorial, and they can also run up to 35 miles per hour. And again, this is stuff that I've retained. I don't know why I retained this instead of like math, dates, more important things.
I find it interesting that, your kid self is thinking about reading credits. You're like, I'm just going to get through this,
Yeah, and again, like,
to get it out of the way.
I've always loved animals, too, but it wasn't like I picked up that hippo book specifically because I'm like, I want to learn more about hippos.
Well, and I guess that's the kid mentality, though. You see things like, oh, hippos, and they're so fascinated by it, like, that looks fun. Whereas you just seem like a very logical kid. Like, I'm just going to read this because it seems simple, and so I can get my reading credits out of the way.
Basically. And then, for whatever reason, hippos have been branded in my brain to where, again, if somehow they come up in conversation, or if someone's like, oh, I'm going to go pet that hippo. No! They're Africa's most dangerous animal. It will outrun you, it will outswim you, and it will probably gore you with its tusks. Don't do that.
That's actually, that's really scary. I didn't think about that. The swimming part, actually.
Yeah. Because, again, you think they're so big, they wouldn't be able to run fast or swim fast. Ho-ho! On the contrary. And it's also weird to think that, like, they're more dangerous than, like, a lion or a cheetah.
Yeah.
Like, cheetahs can run super fast, so it's like, there's no escaping a cheetah. They can also climb, so even if you try to climb a tree, it's like, ha-ha! I got you still, human. And it just climbs up and eats you. And again, maybe that's why that, like, stuck in my brain to where I was, like, racking my brain, like, so cheetahs, lions, elephants, all these other animals that, like, seem they would be more dangerous. Nope. Hippos got them beat.
I love the way you narrate for animals. I think you could do a podcast just, like, doing that. That would be really funny.
Coming next year. And again, I guess that's the whole point of this one, is to just basically hit record, see where this goes, which clearly I don't think anyone saw this conversation going from, like, Assassination Classroom to
hippos.
fun facts about hippos, and why you should avoid them in the nature, or in the wild nature.
And I've never had a desire to travel to Africa.
Really?
Or Australia, really. Like,
is it because everything can and will kill you?
Yes,
there?
like anything that isn't trying to kill you in Africa is over in Australia, and vice versa. So it's like, why? It just doesn't, for me personally, it just doesn't sound like something that
I would like to visit
enjoy.
both countries, but my main thing with Africa is that outside of the dangerous animals, is it is very hot. So I feel like as soon as I
Yes.
left the airport, I would just incinerate because again I'm very pasty pale, and if I could get sunburnt in Ireland, the one country where I didn't think I'd need sunblock, I don't think I stand a chance in Africa. No matter what part of the country I'm in, even if it's the less I don't even have to be near the Sahara. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure I would just incinerate regardless of where I'm at. So I'd literally need a scuba suit, but of SPF 100 to not
Yeah,
burn.
underneath all that.
Yeah. My other apprehension with, or at least with Australia, is yes, I feel like I would need a guide because I'd be like, oh hey, look at that tree. It's like, no, that tree will literally kill you. What? It's it's got tentacles that will like a Venus flytrap or something like that. Because again, it's I think Australia does have some of the most deadliest animals on Earth: crocodiles, sharks, snakes, spiders, really big spiders too. Not just your household spiders, but really big ones that are bigger than my hands, which is not the best comparison because I'm a very short man. But still, the fact that they're bigger than
Well,
your average.
That's still bigger than it needs to be.
Yeah, spiders don't need to be the size of my hands.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like I would need a crocodile hunter-esque guide where they
Yeah.
can jump in a crocodile pit to prove to me that I'll be safe, or just to guard me and prevent me from
I speak from experience. I don't think that tactic would work because I tried that with my little brother. That's one of the reasons why I don't have as many fears as I think that I probably should. Because when I was younger, he was so afraid of everything, and I used to be. And I just wanted him to be able to kind of, experience fun things too.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, if I do things first and I show him that it's okay, maybe he'll, enjoy life more.
Yeah.
Just kind of be adventurous in things, which. Now, he is extraordinarily cautious. So I think I actually made it worse on accident. I had good intentions. The effort was there. I tried. Everyone saw. Which, it helped me because I overcame so many of my fears. So now I'm just let's just go jump off a cliff. That sounds so much fun. I'm yes, head first into danger.
Yeah.
And my little brother is the one that's Anna, do not do that. And I'm
You also have the most efficient way of killing wasps. Just punch them.
exactly, just punch them.
Just
He's the one
punch everything.
you can't do that. And I'm why? And he's because you will die. And I'm not, for that today.
But you never know. Maybe if you're in the ocean and you come across a shark, it's do the same thing as you did that wasp. You punch it, and then maybe the shark's just okay.
Maybe, yeah.
It's I clearly don't rule the seas anymore.
I do have some pretty tough knuckles. So, maybe it wouldn't rip my skin off.
Hopefully. But yeah, lesson to you listeners, just punch things. That'll solve all your problems.
Yeah, if you're well, not all your problems. Don't just, if somebody says something mean to you, maybe violence isn't the first reaction,
Okay.
you should have, a little kid's picking on you, it's maybe not punch them in the face. That's kind of wrong.
That's fair.
But if you have something, scaring you, freaking you out a little bit, chasing you, yes, punch them.
In particular, clowns, punch those.
Yes.
Because they've got the big honky nose, they'll be fine.
Clowns, wasps, sharks.
And I would say mimes, but again, they've got the wall, so they could probably just block it.
Go for the knees.
Ooh, that's true. Unless they've
yeah.
pre-prepared a whole wall around them, a mobile wall, then yeah, go for the knees.
Always, when in doubt, go for the knees.
There you go. Another life lesson for you people listening. Punch,
always, yeah.
maybe not everything, but punch most things to solve your problems, and always go for the knees. If you can't punch them in the face or upper torso, punch them in the knees.
You get hurt, just laugh it off.
Yeah.
I told you about the time I actually did take a nosedive in the concrete.
I don't think I remember this.
Okay, so, I was on a walk with my mom, my dog, and my brother one day, and my dog was, super, antsy, and she just had a lot of energy, and I was gonna go jogging anyway, so I told my mom, I was well, here, just give her to me, and I'll let her jog with me, which, something I should probably go ahead and address is that my dog is the size of a small pony. She wasn't supposed to be. She was the runt of the litter.
Is this a mix
yes,
dog? Okay.
she is a mix between a I think it's it's a German Shepherd and A boxer. That's
Oh.
what it is. Yeah. So we haven't really had experiences with dogs in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So when we got her, she was the runt of the litter.
Yeah.
We didn't really know what that meant.
Mm-hmm.
And so my parents were just like, oh yeah, we'll get her. It'll be fine. She'll be like pretty small, her being the runt of the litter and everything. We were so wrong. Her paws are massive. She's like so big, and she has so much anxiety, which makes it worse. And she's so clumsy too. It's kind of sad actually. And she's not the smartest, bless her heart. She loves wholeheartedly and so passionately, but yeah, she's not very bright. So keeping that in mind, and like when we walk her down the streets, people are like, so are you taking your horse for a walk? And like at first it was like, yeah. that's a good one, but now it's kind of old. I'm not gonna lie, like come up with something else. But moving off of topic, going back to what I was saying. So me and my brain that just doesn't give me red flags, and those sirens that other people have, they just don't go off for me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, I can take her for a walk. I can do this. All at the time, 5'2" of me, I can do this. And so my mom was like, I don't know. Like, she seems pretty wired. I don't know if this is a good idea. And so I'm like, no, it'll be fine. So I just grabbed, the leash. I was like, don't worry about it. So we take off running. And as soon as we do, I thought, out of the long list of really stupid things that I have not thought through, this is probably like close second. This is really stupid. Because we get about halfway down, so this just makes it better. We get halfway down the hill. A hill.
Off to a good start.
Me and this massive dog. And I start losing my balance. And I thought, oh crud. I was like, well, if I just let go of the leash, she'll get away, but I'll catch my balance and then she'll come back and we can work it out. Yeah. So I let go of the leash, well, because it was like
attached to your wrist?
My wrist, well, when I let go, it slid, but the end of it caught on my wrist, so it jerks me forward, and I go head first, like nosedive in the concrete. And in those superhero films where like some of the villains, they pick up the hero and they just chuck him across the screen and they just go flying and then they hit the ground and they just like smash into everything until they finally like hit a truck and then fall over. That's not how it looked, but that's how it felt. It was like really epic, and it probably looked more like a small doe, that just like fell over and was But anyway, so I hit the concrete, I roll, and then I kid you not, I like slammed into a ditch.
Ooh.
Yeah. Which when I sat up, I was just a little disoriented. Like my head was kind of spinning because I hit it pretty hard, and then I realized that my mom's probably going to freak out. So I just tried to like give her a thumbs up. And I was like, I'm okay. And then I look up and I realized that my hand's bleeding. Like, there's just red all over it. And I was like, I'm sorry. I'm sending mixed signals.
Yeah. It's like, I'm okay.
Like, I really
blood
am.
dripping from your hand.
And so my mom just runs over to me. My brother doesn't even hesitate. He runs past me and goes after the dog. So
you're bleeding, you're fine. The dog's more important.
I'm okay. So I stand up and my mom's like, are you really okay? I was like, I'm fine, it's fine. And she's like, are you telling me the truth? I'm like, why don't you believe me? And she's like, because you could have 2 broken legs and you'd still say you're fine. I was like, I really, really am. And of course, while I'm saying this, my leg's kind of stinging really bad. And I told her, and of course I got a rush of adrenaline, so I'm shaking too, which isn't helping, my case any. But I was like, no, it's fine. I was like, can we still go walking? And my mom's like, I'm taking you back to the car now. And I'm like, oh, come on. And she's like, no arguments. We're going back to the car. So I'm like, fine. So as we're walking like up the hill, I'm like, I could tell she was really worried. So I was just trying to crack a joke and make light of the situation. So I was like, battle wounds. And she just looks at me and she just shakes her head like, how did I end up with you? I don't know. So we get back to the car. And of course, like I said, my hand's bleeding. Come to find out, like I tore like the skin off of like part of it. So it was really gross, and that's why blood was everywhere. And then my mom was like, just make sure, like, check in case you, like, got injured anywhere else. I was like, I really think I'm fine.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's just my hand. And she's like, Anna, like, you have grass in your hair. You have, like grass stains on the side of your arm because you hit the ground so hard. And I was like, I really think I'm okay. She's like, just check. So I'm looking. Well, I realized that I turned funny, and my right side, like, near my hip, it was like, it kind of stung a little bit. I was like, that's weird. So I just kind of lifted up my shirt just a little bit. Well, I tore the skin off of that too, like the first layer, and there was gravel in it, and it's bleeding, and I'm like, I just looked at my mom, and I was like,
it's a flesh wound, Mom.
Yeah.
Just keep walking.
I was like, well, that's not good. And so she's just like, she's panicking the whole time. She's like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe I let you do this. I feel so bad. And so we go back home, and my dad was like, well, she'll be fine. We'll just patch her up. And it wasn't so bad. The worst part was that we had to take a needle and dig out the gravel in my side, which was, it actually wasn't as painful as you'd think.
Oh, well, that's good.
But this is coming from me, and I do have a weirdly, like, high pain tolerance. So yeah. And I was, my biggest concern, like, while he was doing this, I was just like, I'm sorry if I'm moving too much. He's like, you're like one of the most still people in this situation that I've ever seen.
I do like the fact that, like, this whole thing, like, this is basically like the scene in, like, Monty Python's Holy Grail where, like, they're fighting the Black Knight. Yeah. Like, arms getting chopped off. It's kind of like, it's just a flesh wound. It's like, surrender. It's like, no. And then he's just a torso. It's kind of like, surrender. It's like, I can keep going. It's like, no, you can't. You're just a torso. That's kind of how I see this, where your mom's just like, you're not okay. It's like, whatever. Arm falls off. It's like, it was coming off anyways. Didn't need that arm.
I say some dark things sometimes, but I really am an optimist. I think, as we can see here, I'm trying to put a light spin on this. I'm like, I'm okay. And then afterwards, like, we finally, like, we get this massive Band-Aid to, like, put on my side, and then we wrapped gauze all around my hand because it was bleeding so much. And I sent a picture to one of my friends, and they were like, that's like Walking Dead brutality. Like, how did that even happen? So I told my mom, I was like, well, at least it's a really funny story to tell. Yeah. Like, now, I mean, it made you laugh. I'm pretty sure, like, I hope it makes other people laugh. I thought it was really funny.
Yeah. And again, I just like that whole imagery of, waving while your hands bleed. It's like, I'm okay. We're good. No harm, no foul. Maybe there's an infection, but, whatever.
This kind of stuff happens to me all the time.
So is that not the worst injury you've ever sustained? Or would that be like...
Well, I mean, when I was really, really young, I think I was about 3 years old, maybe 4, possibly 4. I was jumping on the couch when my mom told me not to, and exactly. Which is why, you should really listen to your parents when you're younger. They really also, do try to protect you.
To be fair, part of life growing up is just learning by experience.
Exactly. That's very true.
Again, your parents are like, don't jump on the couch. Don't touch the iron. You're kind of like, I'm going to touch that iron, and then get a big blister on your hand. But I learned after that day, okay, yes, the iron is not a good thing to touch. So I imagine a similar experience where you're jumping on the couch. It's like, ha-ha, take that, Mom and Dad.
Well, we had a coffee table that was, like, right next to it. I'm pretty sure everyone can see where this is going. So I jumped, and I fell off, and I broke my collarbone on the way down because it hit the coffee table. And, of course, I'm 4, so what do 4-year-olds do? They, like, scream, they cry, and my dad's like, she's fine. She'll be okay. And my mom was like, do not say that. Like, that is, we have to take her to the hospital. Something is wrong. So they did, because I think they're, at heart, they're good people. So
it sounds like it for the most part.
Exactly. So they take me to the hospital, and come to find out, yeah, I did. I broke it. It was really intense, but yeah. Now, my little brother, on the other hand, he was a moron. We would walk into the living room so many times, and he'd go to like stick his finger in the outlet.
Okay, that's... I never even did that.
And we'd be like, Evan, stop it. What are you doing? And so, but what makes this story funny, and now I also want to preface with this, he's a very smart person, and he's matured quite a bit. But when he was young, we were a little concerned. We would tell him not to. He did it anyway, naturally, like you were saying. And so we thought, well, good news is he'll never do it again. And that was not true. He did do it again, actually, I think quite a few times. Which we were like, why? Why are you doing that to yourself? I don't know why. I don't think he even really knew why. He has a really, like, bad luck with electricity, though. When he got older, he blamed me for a lot of things that happened to him. Either whether it's me dragging him on really extroverted adventures because he's an introvert, so he gets really upset with me, when I do that. Or, I played so many pranks and stuff on him because that's what siblings do. Yeah. And I was a lot nicer to him than a lot of other siblings are to their siblings. And honestly, I would go as far as to say, like, even my brothers were to me sometimes. Like, I took it really easy on him. Yeah. And they were harmless. I genuinely mean that. Like, a lot of people say, oh, it was harmless, and it's like, you almost killed them. Yeah. That's not harmless.
It's like, they broke a leg. It was harmless. It's like, well...
Not really.
It's a very skewed way of looking at it, but sure.
No. Like, they really were. I think my pranks were more just picking on his state of mind, which is...
Not hard to do for introverted people.
Well, I convinced him that pennies were magically, like, following him around everywhere he went. Like, everywhere. And I got so many people in on it that he could not suspect one person, so I really did convince him that this was a magical thing. And we put them everywhere, like in the back of his phone case, in his bookcase, so when you pull out books, it would just, like, fall on his head. It got so bad. I was upstairs in my room one time. All the way downstairs in my house, I just all of a sudden, like, I'm going about my day, and all of a sudden I just hear, pennies! Pennies! He's just, like, screaming. He's freaking out. And it got really bad, too, because when we go out anywhere, because this became such a thing, when we'd go out to, like, GameStop, even, he, like, went to pick up a game, and he saw a penny on the floor. And he just looked at me, and he was like, pennies. He just picked it up, and he's like, why?
So, like, with your planning, was this something where, like, because you said, like, you got, like, your whole family on this, so, like, was this be something where your brother Evan, like, he's off doing his thing, soccer practice, whatever his extracurricular activities are, and you're, like, got, like, a whiteboard with your whole family gathered around the table. It's like, okay, so if we place pennies here at this exact time, and maybe, like, some of the red, like, string, like, on, like, a cork board where it's like, and then if we do it here at this time, but then you come in right here. So it sounds like this is to that level of, like...
So, when I was younger, like, really young, like, my little brother was a baby, I had Stuart. Stuart's, like, the middle child. And he was very, very devious, but he was extremely, like, well-spoken. He just had a really easy time expressing himself, and there was just something that was, like, just came kind of naturally to him. And sarcasm is a huge thing in our family. So if we like you, we pick on you. And some of us are a bit harsher than others. Like, we take it, like, they take it too far. And some of us are, like, a bit more sociable, I guess. So we try really hard to, be nice about it. Just, like, back off a little bit. Not everybody can take this degree of picking. But when I was younger, Stuart, when I came along, because I was the only girl, and for so long he was the youngest, he was spoiled, he got all the attention and stuff. And when I came along, he hated me. Like, genuinely disliked me.
Oh, wow.
Well, and I didn't know that when I was younger. I thought he was just, like, showing affection. I thought he was just being funny. Like, it was all fun and games. Like, this is what siblings do. They, torture each other. Like, oh, it's so funny. I didn't realize that he was being serious. And so...
Imagine, like, he's, like, throwing, like, poison darts, and you're just like, Stuart, you crazy guy. It's kind of like, it's not a joke.
he would get so mad at me. Oh my gosh, it was so bad. My mom said, like, out of all of us. And this even goes for, like, my oldest brother and Stuart, like, when they were younger, like, before I came along, they tried to kill each other. It was bad. It was so bad. Like, horrible, the things they did to each other. And then I came along, and ours was really just verbal abuse. And yet my
Which
mom...
can sometimes hurt more than, like, physical abuse.
And that is very true. Another life lesson. Don't assume that, like, inanimate objects are going to hurt the person more than words. Words cut deep.
Yeah, sometimes sticks and stones can break your bones, but so can words.
Yes. I've had experience with that too. But moving on. I think we all have. But anyway, so he was just, again, really well-spoken, and he would pick on me so much. And I just wasn't, at the time, I just wasn't really good at expressing myself.
Yeah.
I had a really hard time, you know, coming up with comebacks and those kinds of things, and I just ended up making myself look like an idiot. So I learned that instead, I was like, I've got to, you know, get back at him somehow.
Yeah.
And that's when I started, like, I think that's where it all goes back to, was I started thinking of ways to get back at him without words and through actions. So, like, one time, well, I told you about the time, like, I tried to make him wet his bed because I saw an episode of MASH where, like, if you get, like, a bowl of water and you get the temperature just right and then you put, like, their hand in it while they're sleeping, they'll wet the bed. And I just thought that was so funny, which, being super, super young, you know, you don't think about the temperature of the water. So I wasn't paying attention. I just put some water in it. And I go into his room, I put his hand in it, and he, like, jumps out of bed because it was boiling hot. So, I mean...
Might make him pee the bed in the wrong reason. Just out of sheer pain.
Oh, he was so mad. He chased me all around the house. But I was dying from laughter. So... It would be things like that. I started, like, planning at a very young age, like, things I could do to get back at him. I put a ton of cards in his pillow one time, which doesn't sound like it's that big of a deal. But the thing was is that I did it so you didn't really notice that there were things wrong with the pillow. So he'd lay down and it would be really, really uncomfortable, like, really stiff, really hard. And so he's like, what the heck is wrong with this thing? Like, what happened to it? And so he goes to, like, check it out. Well, when he pulls his pillow out, cards just go everywhere. He was, like, so mad, and it was really funny. So it was things like that. So when I got older, and of course now it's not, I don't use that as, like, a defense against people. I just do it for fun. And it's just, it's funny. Like, there's this one prank I want to try. It's so bad. Oh my gosh. You can actually put plants in a keyboard and they'll grow over time. I've always wanted to do that just to freak people out. It has to be a specific kind, of course, but...
I imagine you have to, like, put, like, dirt and soil, or do the plants not require a whole lot of soil and they just start sprouting up?
Yeah, it doesn't take a whole lot because it was a specific plant, but I forget what it was now. I'd have to look it up again. But yes, it is a thing, and I just...
Wow, that's, like, really long, maybe not super long term, like...
And see... I am for the long-term stuff, like the long-running joke. Like, I had him, like, my brother, believing that pennies were magically following him around everywhere for almost an entire year. We were, like, I think 2 months away from it being a year. I was so close until he finally figured it out. I was devastated. But while I was actually pulling that prank, I was also mailing him ping pong balls from all around the world. Just one every month. One ping pong ball every month, and then by the end of the year, you're supposed to, like, send them one that's colored, and then just stop.
So, okay, so, like, maybe what's the context of, like, the ping pong story? Like, how did that come to be?
I read it online, and I was like, I have to try this now. This looks so funny. Like, it would just be so much fun. And we did. We mailed him some from Argentina, Milwaukee. Like, they were just everywhere. And what was so fun was, like, thinking of a place to write next. You know, like, where is it going to come from this time? And I would actually, because I got my dad in on it. And so we would take turns. I'd pick one country, you know, 1 month, and then he'd get the next one. And so we'd just go back and forth. Did
you, like, spin a globe? It's like, ping pong from Norway.
I mean, I wish I had things like this. We live in a very small house. And so what started it all with the pennies was I really wanted to try this out.
Yeah.
And so I started it, and the whole thing is just to kind of get the ball rolling, I would put just a single penny on his bed.
Mm-hmm.
He'd take it away, I'd put one back. Like, it started there, and I thought, this is really fun, but I know eventually I'm going to get caught.
Yeah.
Because I see him every day,
Mm-hmm.
like, it's very small quarters and everything, so I'm going to get found out.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, well, I feel like one of the biggest flaws for my brother Stuart, because he'd try to pull pranks and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but one of the biggest flaws for kids that try to do that is that they don't include the people that are around them.
Yeah.
Parents and all. And I thought, if I got them in on it,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't get caught.
Yeah, because again, they're fully aware of what's going on.
Exactly. And when you think about it, they really just want to have fun too. And I think that might be half the time, why when the kid gets found out, they get in trouble. It's because, it's like you didn't invite them.
Yeah.
People are going to, people
regardless
feel
of
hurt.
how old you are, you're still basically a child at heart. Or at least you want to be.
Precisely.
You
And
just know how to,
that's
most people just know how to act in
Yes.
public.
Another life lesson. Always, try your appeal to the child within.
Within reason, I don't know. I wouldn't recommend blowing your entire paycheck on, Legos when you need food. By all means, buy your Legos after you brought your groceries and all that stuff.
And one of the things that I learned...
Which is hard, sometimes it's hard to resist when I
It
see,
is.
pop figures. I'm kind of ugh, I really want that Witch King of Angmar right on that Fell Beast.
Well, and people always, I feel assume that, when you grow up and you get older, you have to always be responsible. You have to always do the serious and practical thing. And I don't think that's true. I think there's a balance,
Yeah.
You can be responsible and be, a great leader and a good adult and, all those things. And at the same time, still just let loose and have fun.
Yeah. There you go, people.
Convincing your brother that pennies are magically following him around everywhere.
Another life lesson. If you want to pull pranks, long con.
Yes.
Not short term, go long con.
Go for the long haul. It is, oh my gosh, it is so worth it. And the more the merrier. Always, remember that. Especially when you're trying to pull a con, you need a team. You cannot just do it by yourself. That would be my advice.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah.
So we're going on a little over an hour and a half.
Oh gosh.
So anything else want to keep this going or start wrapping up?
I don't care. I mean, I'm not sure people will want to listen to us for half an hour or 2 hours, but I'm having a good time.
I'm kind of curious to see where else this goes.
Okay. Well, and too, what you can also do, when you're in editing, you could always section out parts and
true.
make them into several episodes.
Hippo section, prank section,
Yes.
fears section. So yeah, if you want to know all about the hippos, go to the hippo section. If you want to know about pranks, go to that section. Yeah, that's probably a better idea than just being here we go, here's a whole 4-hour podcast.
Us
Listen
talking.
to it, yeah. Unless that's your thing. But as much as I like to listen to podcasts, there are some times where I'm ooh, that's...
Well, and that's why you have them in episodes. So for those people that don't want to sit through 4 hours of people talking, they don't have to. Like you said, they can just go to the hippo section or whatever.
Yeah.
And for those of you that don't have anything to do, they can just
digest all of it.
Exactly. They can just go from episode to episode to episode.
And now you will
Playlists.
have the full understanding, or maybe not the full understanding, but you'll have a pretty well-rounded understanding of lots of things. Why sharks are scary. Why spiders are scary. Arguably, to an extent, in my opinion, scarier because they can be literally everywhere. Sharks have yet to find a way on land, as far as I'm aware. Now, once that happens, then I think maybe that's cause for panic.
I actually, when I was little, I had I used to have night terrors. It was so bad. I had so many nightmares as a kid. And that was one of my biggest fears, was that sharks would somehow figure out to come on land. They'd have legs or something. There was one dream I had. Now this is completely irrational, but they were flying through the sky. It was so creepy and so weird. But, and the thing was too, is that even now, I have such vivid dreams, and all of them, a lot of people when they dream, they'll dream of a house, say, and they're it's their house, but it's not really their house. You know how dreams are kind of weird that? I can't relate to that, because all of my dreams are so vivid, and they all make sense.
Oddly enough, I remember more of my dreams like when I was younger. Because again, like I feel like when I was younger, like my dreams were very vivid. I remember like the tiniest of details. But then like now as an adult, like I can remember like bits and pieces of dreams. But like when I try to piece it together, I'm like, okay, I know there was like a castle involved, but I'm like, was I visiting a castle? Was it like a fantasy setting? And then I'm trying to piece things together, and it makes even which dreams never really make sense. There have even been multiple times where I'm in the dream and I guess I'm aware that I'm dreaming. I'm like, this is even weird for one of my dreams. Don't know what that says about me or my dreams or my subconscious.
Dreams are supposed to be weird, though.
Yeah.
To be fair.
Like, I honestly don't know if I could remember or, like, count on one hand, a single finger, on a single dream where I could be like, okay, that made sense why I dreamt that. Because it might even start off normal, like, oh, I'm going for a stroll through the woods. Next thing you know, like, I get abducted by aliens, and then I'm, like, a space marine or something, and, again, it's even weirder, though, because, like, when you're in a dream, it just seems like the natural progression, you're like, okay, obviously I'm going to become a space marine after getting abducted by aliens while going for a walk in the woods.
Like,
totally.
What else could possibly happen?
Yeah. It's like, this is just day-to-day life.
Like, duh.
And I'm interested, like, because I know that, like, some people, like, they can, and I don't know how accurate it is, like, when they, like, read your dreams, like, oh, if you dreamt this, then it means that, or whatever. Or if there is any significance, maybe those people are just, like, they're doing the long con, where they're like, haha, I can read your dreams. Not really, this is just a way to make a living. Which, if that's the case, good on you. Because I would be interested in, because, again, I don't know what that would say as me as a person, where it's just kind of like, you are clearly a very strange person when you're dreaming about, like, these things. It's like, tell me something I don't know. But, like, surely there's some, like, there's something people could decipher from, like, these weird dreams that people have.
I think, yeah, well, they say that what you dream about is actually what you're thinking about subconsciously.
Mm-hmm.
And I think...
That still doesn't make any sense.
Well, I mean, not at face value. You know, you have a dream, like, I had a dream about donuts.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I dreamt that there were donuts downstairs in my house,
Mm-hmm.
and I was so excited. They were just, like, everywhere.
The most tame dream ever. Donuts, yes!
So I go downstairs, and, like, I'm just so excited. Like, I could not believe that, you know, we bought this many donuts. Well, when I woke up, I was so disoriented, and it was so real. I actually went downstairs, and I was super thrilled, because I was like, yes, I'm going to have so many donuts. Well, then I go downstairs, and we had none. And I thought, I cannot believe that my brother and my dad ate all of the donuts. Like, we just bought them like yesterday. How is this possible? And so I was like, I asked him when they came out, I was like, where did all the donuts go? And they were like, they just looked at me and they said, what are you talking about? And I said, the donuts! You just bought donuts yesterday. We had so many. And they were like, Anna, we didn't buy any donuts.
Haven't been to the grocery in like 2 weeks.
Yeah. And so that's, of course, it finally dawned on me. It, like, came back, and I was like, that was a dream. And I was very, very sad. But obviously, I was craving donuts. And, I mean, it kind of makes sense. But, for example, I don't think, you know, maybe all dreams have, like, a deep significance to them. But, like, my little brother one time, he was, like, really dealing with some depression and stuff. Well, he had a dream about zombies chasing him. And he was like, it was so weird. He was like, I didn't play any games that involved zombies. You know, I didn't see any movies or anything like that. Like, why, I don't understand why they would be on my mind. And so I actually looked it up. And come to find out, zombies actually, in dream form, they represent a lifelessness. Like, people that are dealing, like, really struggling with, I guess, like, not having purpose and, like, excitement and things, like, going on in their life. They feel dull, they feel sad, they feel empty. And so that's kind of what zombies represent, which, that was really interesting. And so after, like, I read that to him, he was like, oh my gosh, that's, like, exactly how I feel. That's really what I've been dealing with lately. And then it was like, well, now dreaming about zombies doesn't seem so bizarre now, you know? And so I think sometimes it can have a deeper meaning, and it does make perfect sense. I think that's why I love dreams so much. Like, one of my favorite stories of all time is probably Alice in Wonderland. just because I relate to her character so much. It's like making sense out of so much chaos.
Yeah.
And it's like everyone else would look at that and think, oh my gosh, this is so weird, so bizarre. But it's like to her that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And even like in the story, like the characters around her are, again, that's their day-to-day life where
Exactly.
like the cat can turn invisible or whatever. And
Yeah.
again, anyone else in that situation, you're like, what? Cards, they're alive. A cat, they can like turn it. What is this? But again, people in that world are just kind of like, cards aren't alive. Cats don't. What?
You can't paint roses red.
Yeah, it's like, what are you talking about?
Which goes back to like the whole thing with anime, really. It's like anime is so bizarre and
Full
so
circle.
weird, and like it's so like culture shock for us. But it's like to them that like why wouldn't a person have fox ears? Like what's wrong with you? That's possible. It's normal. And that kind of imagination, that level of just like bizarreness, I guess, it's rational. It's perfect.
I think that's another thing
sense.
that again, more reason why I'd usually gravitate to like because then like I've also watched like some of the more out there like and not just like anime but like comics or movies, TV shows where like they just have a really weird premise. Sometimes it works like to where like somehow this crazy weird premise works and like I'm reading it, watching it, whatever, and I'm in. Other times I feel like premise is cool, but maybe it's too out there, or sometimes it just doesn't. It's not the right execution. It's actually one of my favorite comics that I've read recently. It's called Curse Words, and it's basically this wizard gets teleported from his world to ours, and initially he's supposed to like destroy it or like take it over, but then he's kind of like, I kind of like this world, and then he basically becomes like a celebrity where basically people hire him to like help him out with stuff, as long as it doesn't include like love, war, and one other thing. They're like his only 3 rules, but like he'll help you out with anything, and his name is Wizord, spelled with a O instead of an A, and he's got a talking koala as his assistant. So like the first thing that I saw was like the cover where it's got like this wizard, so he's got like this long flowing beard, which is also the source of his power, which I thought was just kind of a fun little thing.
So fun.
With like these kind of hipster sunglasses, and he's got like kind of a casual business suit and a staff. And then there's the little koala on his shoulder. So like just based on the cover alone, I was like, what's this? And then when I read the description, I was kind of like, talking koalas, wizard, that's... I'm like, okay, I need to read this. And it worked. Like, it's just this kind of weird premise where things have been done similar to that, where like this kind of fish out of water, someone teleports to our Earth, or our world either to be a hero or a villain, and then they're like, I like this better. But just the tiny little addition where it's like, but this guy has a koala that talks, and it's his assistant. So, like, she's in charge of, like, his social media presence and all that stuff. And I love that, like, I love those weirder ideas to where it isn't just the typical, like, hero-villain journey or whatever. It's just kind of like, yeah, here's a dude who's got a talking koala. I'm like, I'm in. That's all I need. Or even, to a lesser extent, but, like, when you mentioned the John Wick movies, I love those. It's a simple premise, but, like, the choreography is incredible. And
it's so good.
Yeah, and like the recent trailer I loved, but I didn't need to watch it. They could have just been like, John Wick on a horse. I'm like, sold.
I know.
That's all I need.
John Wick's coming back. I will go see it. No need for trailers.
Like that's all they had to do is just even like not even like have a picture of him on a horse, but just be like John Wick 3 coming. I forget what the date is. It's like in May. It's like May whatever. John Wick on a horse, and I'm like, he's on a horse? Yes! Is this his new animal companion? What's the context of the horse?
Don't know the relevance to that, but it's so invigorating.
Yeah.
Like, this is just so exciting. I know. And I think the thing with John Wick 2 is I really liked that, like you said, they kept it so simple.
Yeah.
Because I feel like sometimes, going back to what you were saying, you know, about some movies take it too far as trying to be so bizarre and things. It's like it's too much in one thing.
Yeah.
And especially in like action movies and stuff, you know, we try to add in all this extra stuff with like, you know, relationships and all these kinds of things that it's like it doesn't necessarily need.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that movies don't need relationships and things like that, because absolutely. But sometimes, you know, it's good to go back to just plain and simple.
Yeah.
Like good action flick.
It's a revenge film. It's just like his dog died and he wants revenge, and you're kind of like, I would want revenge too if someone killed my dog.
I know. Well, and so many people too. I think people really underestimate the level of companionship that you can develop with an animal.
Yeah.
Like, how much, like, love you have for that little creature.
Mm-hmm.
You do become so attached to it. I mean, there have been so many cases, kids growing up, they don't have any friends, but they have, their dog.
Yeah, and it's even been proven that, like, having a pet, it seems like mostly dogs, not to knock cats, but, like, it seems like mostly dogs have been very therapeutic for, like, the elderly, like, if they live in, like, they don't have a whole lot of family or friends left, they take, like, dogs from, like, an animal shelter, so obviously it's much better that instead of euthanizing them, put them to good use. So, like, they comfort, like, these older, elderly people, and it kind of, like, improves their, just kind of makes them, like, happier and stuff like that. And same thing with kids. Again, maybe a kid doesn't have a whole lot of like friends or something like that, but you give him a puppy, he's going, yes, best day ever.
No, it's so true. Like, and I actually read this. I forget. I don't know if it was hyenas. It was something like that. That were in enclosures. Sorry, I am just butchering this today. They were in enclosures, and it was something like that. Like, it was a particular animal like that had, like, really struggled with anxiety. And so what they would do is they would take dogs and put them in there with them, which that sounds really dangerous and really horrible at first. But it turned out that they made really good companions for them, and it actually helped to calm them and, like, balance them out. And they have pictures of them, like, cuddling together, and they're just, snuggling and stuff. And it's so cute, but it's so cool, like dogs are just really, really good for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Dealing with depression and all that stuff.
And again, like, it's still weird that, how diverse, because I think dogs are actually the most diverse, like, type of animal, because we bred them for so many different purposes. Because again, we have, like, German Shepherds, which are more of, like, they're used as, like, hunting dogs or, like, war hounds and stuff like that. Then we've got Pomeranians, the fluffiest, little, prissiest dogs there are. I don't know what their purpose was, like, back in the day. And so, like, it is kind of weird that, like, for better, because I know, like, some breeds of dogs, like, they've developed, like, problems because of, like, all the different interbreeding and stuff like that, where, like, maybe they don't have a long lifespan, or, like, they have weak, like, joints in their legs or something. I think, like, Dalmatians are like that, where they have, like, weak legs or something like that after so long. But it's just, like, weird that, like, we took essentially a wolf. It's like, come here, little guy. I'm gonna breed you to chase after rats. And then they bred them into, like, rat terriers, these tiny little yappy dogs. Or it's like, I want you to be almost like a bear. And then we get, like, a Tibetan Mastiff, which those things are basically a dog bear. So it's like, I don't know, like, it's fascinating, but at the same time, I guess more reason to love dogs, because they're just so diverse and cuddly, and even the ones that aren't as cuddly, you're kind of like, hopefully you will protect me when someone's trying to attack me. And again, I've just always had a soft spot for dogs, because I grew up on, like, in the middle of nowhere on a farm with, like, 30-something acres. We usually had, like, half a dozen dogs at a time, so usually, like, if my parents couldn't find me, they would just call for the dogs, and I would follow shortly afterward. So they were basically my babysitters. Like, obviously my parents wouldn't just leave and be like, okay, dogs, watch the kid for us. Like, they were present, just to clarify. It's just that, they would let me play outside while they relaxed and didn't have to deal with, children, and the dogs would keep me safe. And again, dogs are just great.
They are. And honestly, all sizes, too. I really do think. Like, when I was younger, I used to think that only, like, if I got a dog, I wanted a dog. I wanted them to be big. I wanted them to be fluffy. I wanted them to be able to, like, attack someone. Like, I wanted a dog.
Yeah.
But now, after having, one that's the size of a pony, it really puts things into perspective for you. And it makes you appreciate the smaller things in life. Like, little Irish, Scottish terriers, Things like that. Ones that are smaller, it's like, we love them too.
Yeah.
And regardless of size, and that's, like, height and everything. That is such a big thing in our society. Height.
Yeah. I struggled with so much insecurities as a kid, because, I mean, I'm a grown adult. I'm only 5'5", so I've not grown much at all. I'm very much a hobbit. But just, that's because, like, again, like, as a kid, like, even when I went through my growth spurt, it's kind of like, yay, I'm tall! Ish. where everyone else would be like 6 feet or more in like middle school or like freshman year, and it's kind of like, am I done? Like, is there like a secret growth spurt I'm missing somewhere? And I had like this, like I was kind of like, well, like, my great grandfather, my dad's side, he's tall, he's like 6 feet. So like maybe, because like red hair is a recessive gene, so I'm like, well, I got the red hair gene, so like that's recessive. So maybe like I'll get that tall gene. Turns out he's not my actual blood related great grandfather. So I was kind of, I was like, oh, I was actually like more baffled. I'm like, this whole time I didn't know he was like, but that's a whole other story. But yeah, and then I was just like, okay, well then yeah, I guess this is all I'm gonna get. 5'5". But I can at least like play Wolverine in the next Marvel movie. So that's the shining light.
And it really gets me too, because it makes me sad that in like fiction and like all of that, we never put like a short person in the hero role unless they're really young kids that haven't finished growing yet. To grow into the hero that we're familiar with. Exactly, because that's like not what people want to see, and I think that's it's really stupid, really, because it's like, short people can be really awesome and epic as well.
And maybe that's another reason why I gravitate so much to like Tolkien's work, is because the hobbits are the main focus, and they're like 3'5". Yeah. So I'm like, I would tower over those guys, and I would love to go to the Shire, so I would be the tallest one there, and be like, yes, ha 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 ha. But, and also I love the fact that like, and also dwarves, I very much relate to dwarves too, because they're just like stubborn, because I feel like that just goes with like that kind of Celtic, Scottish, Irish mentality where we're just stubborn to a T, where it can almost be a detriment, but also with hobbits, they're just that very jovial, like, they don't really want a whole lot of things in life, they're just kind of like, just give me food, like some good ale and good music, I'm good. So I love that whole just simple mentality about them, to where they don't have like super high ambitions, they just want to like live life the way they do it. And again, the fact that they're like 3'5" and they saved all of Middle Earth. You could argue that like, well, Frodo wasn't the hero because he gave into the ring. True, but Sam is actually the true hero of Lord of the Rings.
I know, the unsung hero. Yeah. I feel like Sam is so underrated as a character. I'm not knocking Frodo. Like, he's a cool guy. Yeah. But Sam...
Through everything. Like, even after Frodo was like, get away from me, Sam, like,
he was
Gollum.
So mean.
Yeah. Like, Sam still was kind of like, nope.
And, you look at people and their friends nowadays, and they just go through a little bit of a hard time, and they're just like, well, freak you too, Susan. And then you have Sam. Yeah.
Where no matter what, the guy will, like, not only will he, like, pick up your sword, he'll even carry the ring, and he can't carry it for you, but he can carry you. And that's the kind of friend you need, to where, like, and obviously you're probably not going to a dangerous mountain to throw away a ring, but maybe you just had one too many at a bar, and you've got your Sam, where it's kind of like, look, pal, you can't walk, so let me scoop you up and carry you, which for me is not very hard, because again, I'm 5'5" and only like 120, 130 pounds, so it's not, it's happened before, they just kind of scoop me up. It's like, all right, come on, time to...
I struggle with that too, especially growing up with brothers. Like, they still do that to me, which, I mean, to be fair, I haven't grown that much. I'm only like, I think like 5'3" now. Woo! Maybe a little taller. I don't know. My sister-in-law thinks I've gotten taller, but I don't know. I know I'm definitely, like, the last time I measured myself I'm 5'3". But I worked hard for those. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. But anyway, no, they do. They just, like, pick me up and throw me over their shoulder all the time. And, like, even my little brother, he's like 5'10" now. Yeah. But it's irksome.
It is nice, like, even though like family reunions are usually weird because I barely know anybody, but it is nice because a lot of them are kind of like, oh, you're so big and tall. I'm like, haha, yes I am. Only in this family, because outside of our family, it's just because I'm like probably the max. Like, if you haven't married into the family and you were like tall before, like probably the tallest you're gonna get is about 5'8", which is still not very tall at all. And that's like, if someone's like 5'8", it's kind of like, oh, he's the giant of the family. Whereas, like a friend of mine, he's like 6'4", And
Wow.
and it's like one of the first times he came over, he's kind of like, yeah, because basically he just kind of like came around the patio, which kind of like faces the family room. My parents are just watching TV, so he's like, yeah, I kind of just like waved at your parents, and they were probably like, who's this strange man coming into our home? And I was like, no, it's okay. I told them, so like, but if they just saw you, they probably would have grabbed their pitchforks and torches and be like, giant, kill it! Because again, like, me and my dad are about the same height, and we're the tallest in the household, which again is very sad. So when someone's like 6'4", a strange person, they probably was like, ah, giants, terrifying. And also like other friends like Dave of Pasty Pale Productions is also like over 6 feet. So yeah, usually when tall friends I have to like kind of warn. It's like, yeah, people are coming by, so don't freak out that they're abnormally tall.
I don't know why I end up making friends with like super uber tall people, and I don't know if it's because I'm so small, and so it's just like this natural connection.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but like I in my second brother's wedding, I had to walk with one of like friends of the family kind of thing, and he's like fairly like shorter too. He was like maybe a hair taller than me at the time. And so we got in trouble so much because when we were practicing, the pastor that was like in charge of the whole thing, he's like, you guys are walking too fast. And so, he was like, I'm really sorry, I don't mean to keep messing up. I was like, it's fine. We're short people. And so we're used to running all the time away from very, very big things. It's just instinct.
And I think it's our way of making up for it. Because again, like someone who's 6'4", they have a longer stride. So they can take so many. But like if we're quick on our feet, so like we're basically power walking to keep up with the tall people. And also like, because I'm really good at climbing. Because even though I shouldn't do this at work, oftentimes I'll climb on top of like fixtures.
Oh, it's so much fun.
It is, but it's like, yeah, I could grab the ladder, which is definitely what I should be doing because that's the professional thing. So if I fall and break something, then it's on me. But it's like, then I gotta go grab the ladder, wheel the ladder over here, so that way I can climb on top and grab one thing. It's like, or I can just climb up here, pull it off myself, no problem. So again, I have to make up for my lack of height by being faster and being good at climbing. And for a guy my height, I'm also pretty good at jumping.
It's true. There are talents that we have that tall people don't.
Yeah.
I've also found out through like an experience one time, it's kind of difficult to give a really tall person a high five.
It is.
Now, I'm not talking about 6 feet. Like that's simple enough.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about you remember Devin? You used to work at Kohl's? Okay, he was 6'4", I think.
Yeah.
He was very, very tall.
Yeah.
We were really good friends. Well, one time I was walking down the stock room, and I forget what it was that we accomplished or whatever, but it was just yes, victory moment.
Yeah.
So as I'm walking down, he puts his hand up, and I thought he was waving. And so I was like, I just waved back, and I'm just walking past him. He's he turns around, he's like, what are you doing? I was like, I was waving at you. I thought that's what you were doing. And he said, no, I was trying to give you a high five. I was like, dude, I am down here. You're up there. You have got to lower your hand.
It's like you're almost an entire foot taller.
Yes.
So.
And he was like, I did lower my hand. I was like, I lowered my hand for you is just saying that, oh, hey, you just need a chair now, not a step ladder.
Yeah.
That's still not very helpful to me.
Yeah. So come on, tall people, share some of the height with us, or be better at again, high-fiving. And stuff like that. Be considerate of the short people.
I mean, we were laughing about it though, so it was all good, and I wasn't offended by it or anything.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too, is that a lot of short people, they're very feisty, and they can sometimes get super offended at the yes, pun not intended, the tiniest things. Sometimes they get offended over the smallest things, which is kind of, it's funny. If we're being honest, I'm being honest, again, the lowering your hand so we can give, those really tall, giant people a high five, a lot of people would get upset about that. They'd be like, oh my gosh, we can't believe that. Whereas, it's funny.
Yeah.
It's just a heads up, oh, hey, could you lower your hand? It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But so many do. They take it so personally.
And I think the feistiness, and again, this could just be pure speculation, but like maybe that has to do with the fact that, because again, like tall people, they're usually, even if they're not like super big and bulky or anything like that, just them being tall and kind of like being a lumbering presence, they have this natural like imposing element to them. Even if they're like tall and lanky and clumsy because they're so tall, they still like would be more imposing than someone our height. So I feel like maybe that's our natural thing to kind of attempt, because we don't always pull it off well if again we're like 5'3" picking a fight with someone who's like 7 feet tall. No matter how feisty we may be, it's just kind of like, I can pick you up and throw you. So like you can't like, but again, I think that's maybe our way of, I guess like how small animals like puff themselves up to kind of be like, yeah, I'm bigger than I look. That might be like our natural thing where it's just a subconscious like, okay, I'm very short, what can I do? It's like, I'm gonna be like feisty, have like quips and one-liners that'll like catch them off guard, because obviously I can't physically beat them, but maybe I can beat them with my words.
You know, and again, I just, maybe I'm like getting ahead of myself. Maybe it's more of a personality thing.
That could be it too.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I only think about height when we're in funny situations like that. Sorry.
That's
just
fine.
like knocking bottles of water everywhere. My bad.
No, you're fine.
Anyway, me and my extraordinary hand gestures.
Which,
animated
yeah, as you viewers can clearly tell, it's revolutionary technology we're adding here to this podcast.
Anyway, it's like I only notice it in those moments, you know, to give a high five or something like that, or it's like, you know, I'm trying to reach something, which even then I'm pretty stubborn. And to be fair to, like, you would be surprised, like, just what 1 inch can do once you have it.
Yeah.
Like, since I reached 5'3", haha.
Woo!
Yeah. I can, like...
Reaching for the sky!
My mom gets so mad at me because I can, like, reach the tall shelves and, like, pull stuff down off of it, and I'll hand it to her, and she's like, you're only, like, half an inch taller than me. Because she's, like... She's very short too.
Yeah.
But she gets very envious of that. But anyway, the only time that I really like stop to think about it is like during those times where it's funny. But oddly enough, when it comes to confrontation, it doesn't even cross my mind. I'm just like, once again, go for it. But
Interesting.
I don't know. I think it's just part of my personality.
That could be it
Really.
too.
Well, like when I first, you know, met you, and it was so funny because I didn't even think about it until after you mentioned it to me, how you like have sometimes like this scowl on your face that sometimes
It's just my face.
you like freak people out, and all I saw was like, oh, new friend. And I do that with people all the time. Like there's this guy in like one of the bookstores, and he, like, a lot of people feel like he was, once again, he's just super tall. He's got, like, this long beard. He kind of looks, I guess, and see, this is what I'm talking about. Like, I guess a lot of people find him kind of intimidating because he's kind of introverted. He doesn't talk a lot, and he's very assertive. And I just started this random conversation with him one day, and, like, I was getting ready to walk out the store, and my mom was telling me about this guy that just seemed like super mean and just like really assertive and stuff. And I was like, it hit me what she was talking about. I was like, that's my new friend. Like, he's super nice. He's so much fun. And she's like, what is wrong with you? Like, how do you do that? And I guess because again, it genuinely, it's like I don't think about it. I don't know what it is, and I do get scared. I really do. I have felt intimidation before, so I don't know. I just don't know the trigger. Like what?
I still find it like odd because again, like even because I guess like I do just have this very. I don't know if it is a skill. I've not actually seen my face, but like I have been like people told me it's like you just look like pissed off all the time. And again, that's just my face. I'm sorry if I'm intimidating you, which I don't think I could, even if I am like I guess scowling. I don't think people would really be like, oh, watch out for that guy. He's got a scowl. But yeah, it's I guess just because a lot of times I'm in my own head, like, thinking about pretty much whatever we're talking about here. We're just so many thoughts going through my head. It's where I'm kind of like, hippos. And then I'm just, like, walking straight ahead, not, like, really looking in my peripheral vision. So there could be someone, like, maybe that's, like, trying to get my attention, and they just see me, like, laser-focused when I'm really not laser-focused, because people are like, you look like you're a man on the mission. No, not at all. I'm walking. And I don't even know what I was thinking about. And they're just kind of like, I was kind of afraid to approach you. I thought you were, like, busy. It's like, no, just got lost in thought.
You know, and that's the thing, too. I think it just comes down to, like, how the individual carries themselves. You walk with confidence, you act with confidence, even though you may not be a confident person. You act like that. People get that sense, they get that feeling, you know. And it really is amazing how much information we just, like, intake strictly off of body language alone and just mannerisms and things like that.
Again, like, I feel sorry if I were to try to talk, like, to someone with, like, sign language. Because I talk a lot with my hands, so I feel like that wouldn't translate well, even if I knew sign language, because I'd be, like, trying to do things, but then... Because I feel like if I'm trying to accentuate something, like, if I'm like, oh, they're really big, then I'll, like, kind of raise my hands out to, like, as though someone wouldn't understand, like, what's big? Please show with your hands how something is big. And again, I don't know why I do that. It's just something that just naturally comes to me where I'm like, yeah, something's, like, really big, and stretch my arms out, or, like, I don't know...
Yeah.
Because that's another thing that people point out. It's like, yeah, you talk a lot with your hands. And again, maybe it's just because of me being dead inside. This is the best way I can express things with, like, because again, since I just have that blank, scowly face, I'm just kind of like, I'll use my hands to express jazz hands. This is what I'm feeling right now.
I think it's just, you know, well, I come from a very dramatic people.
Mm-hmm.
All of them, in their own way. They are so dramatic, and honestly, we should have been in the theater or something along those lines. So it's like, for me, being expressive and being super eccentric and just, you know, talking with your hands, being, you know, very, very animated, that's normal for me. So I guess talking to someone like you, it's like, I don't really notice that because that's just, again, that's normal behavior. But to other people, I guess that would kind of be a bit odd, especially because I know, and this baffled me. Like, there are some people that think, like, talking with your hands and things like that, like, that's just, it's, like, I've actually heard people say that it's unmanly.
Really?
Which I'm thinking, how is that a masculine, like, not, how does that even fall into a gender thing?
Yeah, cause, I don't know, and maybe it's just because I do it so often, like, as I am right now.
Yeah.
I'm not even aware when I'm, like, talking with my hands, but it's, like, maybe just because I'm so... I've just been used to that I don't think of, like, oh, hey, talking with hands or, like, other things like that would fall into any kind of gender-related expression.
It's not, like, it's just a thing. Some people do it, some people don't, you know? Some people breathe heavily, some people don't. How does that fall into a, you know, a feminine or masculine trait? Like, that just doesn't make sense to me. But for some people it does, which is, you know, again, I find weird, but other people agree with that.
But also, maybe people who talk with their hands were secretly casting spells. Because I use similar hand gestures, like in Doctor Strange, which I kind of like, because that's one of my favorite characters anyways. But after I was watching the movie, I was like, I think I got some of those hand gestures, like, kind of, like, doing, like, maybe not, like, to the point where I'm doing, like, circles, but I'm like, maybe, like, at one point in life, I was, like, a wizard, and I'm trying to, like, get back to my home realm or something, so I'm just constantly doing hand gestures, like, no, that's not working.
Or you're in, like, the previous life kind of thing.
Yeah. Or possibly even a Jedi and trying to use the Force, I don't know. Or, again, it's just the fact that I express with my hands. But, so we start wrapping up here, since you'll probably have to be going here in a little bit, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yeah, I did not realize. Wow, we burned through those hours so quickly.
But thank you, though, for being the first guest on here. It's been an absolute delight.
It's been an honor. This has been so much fun.
Please come back to the show at some point.
I totally see why people do this now.
Yeah.
You just get, like, so invested.
Yeah. So again, if like you want to promote any of the social medias you're on,
I mean, Pinterest is actually like a really, really good app to have. Now, a lot of people, again, make fun of it because they think it's just, this thing that moms go on to find cool crafts and things to make at home for their children, and it's not. It's actually a really wide variety. It has like a lot of things you can look up. There's actually like a lot of art that you can find on Pinterest that's really hard to find just like randomly on the internet.
Yeah.
And like really good art too by very reputable like artists and things. And you can look up like random facts and technology. It's a lot like Tumblr in that. It's just got a lot of stuff on it. So it's really, really awesome. I would highly recommend it.
Cool. Maybe you'll find some hippo facts.
You can find hippo facts.
Yes!
I would also like to state, because people have given me such a hard time about this, me and my mom go at it all the time. She's like, you should watch, the Lexington News Weather, Channel 18.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that is a bad channel by any means, but I also think that AccuWeather, an app that I have on my phone, is just as reputable and accurate as anything else you will find out there.
Yeah.
I just would like to point that out.
So there.
It's a good app.
If you're looking for a weather app, there you go, people. But that wraps up this first episode. Hopefully you all have enjoyed this very lengthy episode.
And I'm so sorry for all of my grammatical errors. Like, I've been working night shift and it's starting to do things to my head.
and apologies for all that hand gestures. I'm sure it's very distracting for you all. But just the way this podcast works.
Unfortunately, some water bottles were harmed during
the
making of this.
But don't worry, they will get recycled. So there's that, because we care about the environment here.
Yes!
But that wraps up this episode. So again, hopefully you all have enjoyed. And until next time, everyone, cheers.